Notre Dame fans, welcome back to Irish Breakdown Mailbag. It is the best day of the week for at least one person in this room. There's no doubt who that is. That is Vince. It is his favorite day of the week. That means it is Friday. That's the only day you can get Vince to dance like that, either on Friday or when you start talking about Friday.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I always thought it's because you were in school, but you're like that during the summer too. Vince
Love
loves
it.
the mailbag. He loves
Love
the
the
mailbag.
mailbag. Love it.
I am Brian Driscoll, the publisher of Irish Breakdown, joined by my man Vince D'Addario, our football analyst, and our director of recruiting up there over my left shoulder, Ryan Roberts. They're just kind of staring down at me, weighing on my shoulders today. This would be my bad angel and my good angel right here is kind of how we look at it. That's how we did. That's how we roll. So let's get rocking and rolling. We got a lot of stuff. I mean, it's been such a crazy. July is usually like our chill time. No, it won't.
Nope.
It's going to be crazy. June ended with a bang. July is going to just be even crazier. We are going to have two shows today. Reminder, we're going to go live tonight at 6 p.m. It's going to be me and Ryan. Tonight you'll be with me, right? You'll be with me tonight.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to be covering the pending decision of Micah Bell. So we'll talk about that tonight. But another Micah is kind of where we're going to start our first question here. Jordan Schreiber said, is there going to be a Micah Tease episode? Somebody also asked me if I'm going to be, if we have a dancing GIF on our message board for the Micah Tease news that he's going to be making a decision on Monday. No, we will not. We will not have a show when he makes his decision, nor will we have any dancing GIFs because of anything related to Micah Tease. He has not been none of our dancing GIFs have been because of him. And if you have to be on the message board to know that is. None of them have been because of him. We've been hearing some good things lately that Notre Dame was trending, but it looks like this is going to go in another direction. I'm not going to say a whole lot else, guys, because I don't want to ruin the kid's moment, but I'll say it's not who we thought it was going to be. Let's just say that.
Right? Interesting is the word.
Ooh,
yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Is the word. And that's about all that it's all about all we'll say. So, and our guy Irish for Life is in the chat. He had one of the first comments. I know you're going through a tough time, buddy. We're definitely praying for you, man. Keep your head up, and of course, you can be here with your Irish Breakdown family to help keep your mind off things a little bit and enjoy, at least for a couple hours, a little bit of fun and Notre Dame and college football talk. So, let's kick it off, guys. We knew this was going to be a hot topic of conversation.
Just going to say, I wonder what we're going to talk about today.
Happy Friday mailbag from Shane O'Shea. I'm strongly in favor of Notre Dame staying independent, but if they were forced to join the expanded Big Ten, do you see any positives?
Go ahead, Ryan. You go ahead and kick this one off, buddy.
I mean, I talked about it a little bit on Twitter yesterday, man. Look, there's a lot of speculation out there right now because there's an assumption that it's just going to be these super conferences. They're not going to play anything out of conference. Everything is going to be intertwined. So you have to get in before you get left behind, right? Like I feel like that's what most people's opinions are of the situation.
And it's been that way every single time there's been conference realignment. Sorry, I just had to say that.
No, you're absolutely right.
That's where I was about to go with it because I'm on the firm stance here. I still think that Notre Dame has much more benefit being independent than being in a conference. That is first and foremost. And number two, I think there's a lot of speculation on what it's 100% going to look like, and we don't know that, right? So until I have a firm understanding of what the landscape is 100% going to look like, I am sticking firm with I think independent is the best way for Notre Dame to be moving forward. We've talked a lot about the Big Ten. I think that the natural one would be the ACC. If that's one of the conferences that sticks. If it's the SEC versus the Big Ten, then that's a different conversation, right? But again, it's a lot of speculation right now, which makes this conversation a little loaded and there's just a lot of layers to kind of peel back. But the biggest one is obviously strength of schedule will never be a question anymore. You have the conference championship in theory. So like those things are going to go in Notre Dame's favor, but I still think ultimately independent gives you a lot more pluses than going into a conference, in my opinion.
The only, and I said this last night, and I will continue to say it. Number one, Notre Dame's not 100% driven by money, as some people claim to think that they are. Number two, as long as Notre Dame,
not when it comes to conference decisions,
right?
That's
fair
what
enough.
We're saying, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because if it was, Notre Dame would have gone into a conference a long time ago because they would have made more money. Period. Right. They would have.
The decision makers at Notre Dame, and I believe Pete Sampson had an article about this. And I don't promote Pete Sampson much, but this is the kind of thing he's good at. He had an article a couple years ago about what people don't understand is Notre Dame not being in a conference helps them make even more money in fundraising and those type of things than they would make if they joined a conference, and they would lose that because then they would become a regional school.
Correct.
And that's what people understand. So Notre Dame cares about money. It's they don't chase after the TV dollar like everybody,
which is
thinks
what everybody is talking about.
Which is why they've been with NBC all these years, because it mattered more to them to be by themselves than to maximize. I mean, I guarantee you ESPN and CBS and Fox have offered Notre Dame bigger deals than NBC in the past. Guaranteed.
And they will when the NBC contract comes up in a few years. I mean, that's a guarantee. The only thing that I think pushes Notre Dame into a conference is if for some reason the college football playoff blocks their entrance into the playoff because you have to be a conference member. That's the only thing.
Or they can't schedule. That's the only other thing. Like these two conferences,
they just block everybody out.
These two 20-plus team mega conferences say you can't play anybody else outside the conference. That would be the only other thing that would force it. And until then, like, it's, but
I don't see that happening either because of the money. These schools make a ton of money.
Like, here's the thing. Why would you think that the TV deal people wouldn't want Notre Dame to come on? And why do you think they want Notre Dame to be an independent? I mean, if anything, if you're a money maker, and again, the part of this is like being creative and having some common sense. And I think a lot of people making decisions right now are just chasing the dollar, and they don't have a lot of common sense. Like USC and Texas and Oklahoma have hurt their chances to play for championships because they're chasing the almighty dollar.
Correct.
If anything, it's like they should hire someone who, if they're going to go down this road of kind of forming this independent, which is essentially what it's going to turn into, whether it's official or unofficial, this independent, and we're going to do a show on this very soon. I promise you, probably next week, where we're going to just focus on this issue because I have a lot to say about it. But I want the smoke to settle, and I want to be able to talk with the guys, because like last time in the 12-team playoff thing, we just immediately came on the show, and I just kind of had this very strong, heartfelt opinion. Vince was like, maybe you might want to rethink that. And so we'll have these conversations, and Vince's point was very valid, and I was like, you know what? I see where you're coming from, and I think that I was wrong in my assessment. So I don't want to just have that immediately like emotional reaction on the show. I'm fine just chatting with Twitter, because I also like on Twitter, I kind of like you say something because you know what people are going to say back. And I just love to hear the stupid responses that people make kind of coming back about things, especially the non-Notre Dame fans who are just morons on Twitter. But anyway, the thing about this whole thing is I would hire someone who's like kind of has a background in entertainment, because if anything, you want foils, right? Like that's the thing, is like you bring Notre Dame on, let them have their own deal. Notre Dame doesn't need the $70 million that the Big Ten is giving. Like if Fox News was smart, if Fox Sports was smart, and I think they are, because they're trying to battle ESPN to say, hey, Notre Dame, we'll offer you guys $30 million a year to come and be a part of what we do. And we're going to give you get the 3:30 spot every week, and we'll give you 2 p.m. slots of your choosing, right? Which is basically what they have now with NBC.
Right.
And we'll give you $30 million. I think Notre Dame would jump at that chance, in my opinion. And it'd be smart for them to do that, because then you still have that team that everybody loves to hate. That's good for business.
Yep.
Like Notre Dame loses that if they're in a conference, because part of what makes this thing unique is, other than USC and Navy and Stanford, Notre Dame doesn't play the same teams every year. You join a conference and you lose that luster. You lose your value. Your brand takes a hit. And that's not just true for Notre Dame, but that's true for Fox. In 10 years, Notre Dame isn't the same team that they were from a brand standpoint, because they're not this independent national program. It would make sense for you as a business model. I mean, just a pure business model to say, we'll pay you, even if it was like, we're going to pay you $20 million less than what we're paying all of our conference members. Notre Dame would be like, cool, right? Because Notre Dame's going to make that money up by playing these teams, because they get payouts to play on the road, which you don't get when you're playing a conference game, right? You're still going to have this national brand. You're still going to be able to travel. You're going to make all your boosters and donors happy by playing out in California, playing in New York, playing the Shamrock game, all that other kind of stuff. But now the TV is making money, because now they have their Notre Dame segment. And as we've said before, people say, well, you can't have a pregame show. Well, they don't have a pregame show at NBC. They have like a 20-minute intro to the game. That's it. They don't have like,
it's not even all that good.
Before Monday Night Football. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And then when they cut away to the studio, they start talking about the NFL and horse racing and all this other crap that nobody cares about. You know what I mean? So they would get a much better show, and then they'd get like segments on Fox Sports, the big noon kickoff. They'd have their Notre Dame segment, and all this other kind of stuff. It would be great for Notre Dame, but you don't have to join a conference to get that.
Right.
And if the Big Ten and the ACE in these other conferences are smart, say, hey, look, we don't need you to come on as a partner. Like everyone says, well, for the Big Ten, it's either Notre Dame comes on as every sport or not. That's bad business because they're not going to do that, right? And are you better off paying them $40 million for membership in every other sport, and then you get the 5-game deal like the ACC has now, or nothing at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so this is the thing. There's a lot of people that don't know how Notre Dame thinks and operates, and this goes to Vince's point. A lot of people look at it just because USC's chasing the money. That's because their school has got its own issues, right? And Notre Dame doesn't live in that universe. They never have lived in that universe. Notre Dame has its completely different branding thing, like Vince was saying, and it's not just about the TV money. And this is what people miss out on.
Exactly.
Notre Dame isn't hurting for money because they don't have as big of a TV deal as the other teams.
No.
And if they wanted one, they would have joined a conference years ago. I mean, the Big Ten has always had an open invitation to Notre Dame to join the conference. And that I just don't think, and people at Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame fans for the most part get this, even the ones that want them to join a conference, they kind of get that, most of them. But people outside they have this thing like, well, this is Notre Dame's not going to have a choice now. Okay.
Can we
They
wait?
100% have a choice.
They're going to have a choice until they don't have a choice anymore, right? Like this is why I'm getting so frustrated with this conversation, because to your point, Brian, Notre Dame's different, so everybody hates them, right? Oh man, why do they get to do that? Why do they get to stay independent? Blah 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 blah. Whatever. Then I'm on Twitter yesterday. Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're fine, Vince. I was on Twitter yesterday, and people were like, "Oh, Notre Dame has to do it now. Like they like it's time. It's over. They have to do it before they get left in the dust." They're not going to leave Notre Dame in the dust.
Bingo.
Evaluate what type of brand Notre Dame is that they're going to be left in the dust. Any of these conferences, what's Notre Dame in it? They're money makers, man. Like,
and that's
out with that.
So the 5 minutes after the college football playoff announces that you have to be a conference champion to make it into the college football playoff, or whatever it is that blocks Notre Dame, the bidding war will commence for Notre Dame to be in any conference that is still viable at that point. It will be a bidding war. Don't tell me that Notre Dame doesn't have leverage. They will have leverage forever until they join a conference, and then they don't have leverage
and
anymore.
Then they lose it. And that's exactly why people want them to join a conference.
Exactly.
That right there is exactly why people want Notre Dame to join a conference, so then they can just be like everybody else.
They will always have leverage.
It's a power struggle. It's a power struggle. They're trying to knock Notre Dame down a peg so that everybody – they love parity. They love parity.
I have to think that Jack Swarbrick's smarter than that. I have to think that. Now – If Notre Dame was going to join a conference, as I said before, it's going to be on their terms. And it's going to be something where they work out some deal with the ACC or they form something. I would much rather see them go, because here's the stupidity of this whole thing. These teams are building themselves up to separate into groups. You're going to get these 24-team SEC conference that's going to have like 2 to 4 divisions, and these teams aren't going to play that much anymore. So it's like, why not come together with the Big 12 and say, hey guys, let's partner together. We're going to still get ours. You're going to get yours because we're going to bring you on, and we're still going to have the conferences, and we're going to sign some kind of scheduling pact, where this is how it's going to be because the money's still going to be there. So like you're going to join these mega conferences. You can split up to basically 12-team conferences anyway, or, 4-6 teams or however many 4 teams, and you're still going to not play most of the teams in your league hardly ever. It's just so stupid. It also kind of goes to show that the Pac-12 and the ACC severely screwed over. There was an article, I think Dan Wetzel wrote it, and I didn't read the whole article, but the premise I agree with. When the Pac-12 and the ACC rejected the new playoff format for some whatever stupid reason they came up with, they basically screwed themselves over. Like, you tried to wield a hammer that you aren't strong enough to wield. Right?
Exactly.
Like, you tried to pick up Mjolnir and you aren't worthy. You know what I'm saying? And now the rest of the conference, like, okay, screw you then. You know what I mean? Like, we were willing to drag you along. Big Ten and SEC, we were willing to bring you losers along. You and your $20 million TV deals, we're willing to bring you along. And then you vote down the thing that had automatic, playoff bids for you. that you were going to do this and you're going to do that, and then you guys wanted to go do your own thing. Fine, go do your own thing and go team up with the AAC. You know what I mean? Go team up with the Mountain West and have fun with that while we leave you behind, because nobody gives a crap about Texas Tech or Oregon State or whatever. And there's one market in the Pac-12 that matters, one, and
it's now part of the Big Ten.
It's now part of the Big Ten. You know what I mean? And you screwed yourselves over. And look, the reality is, if the ACC doesn't beg Notre Dame to join and then give Notre Dame like whatever it wants, I mean, hey, Notre Dame, here's a blank contract. You write in what you want. You write in your terms. What's going to happen is in the next year, Florida State's going to bail for the SEC. Florida State's struggling financially. They're not going to be able to say to the ACC, okay, yeah, we're going to keep your $26 million TV deal, and we're going to turn down $60, $70 million from the SEC because we just love being in the ACC. Bullcrap. There's no loyalty left anymore. They're going to take that money and run. If the ACC doesn't do something big, like I had hoped that the Big Ten would show leadership, anti-SEC leadership. That was my hope, but Kevin Warren's an idiot, and
your pipe dream.
The leadership of the Big Ten schools are greedy losers who are academics, not business people, right? And so it wasn't going to happen, and this is kind of where we are. If the ACC doesn't do something, if they just sit back and wait, they will become non-existent, because the Big Ten and the SEC are not going to stop here. They're not.
Agreed.
And they're gonna eat themselves, right? They're gonna end up going too far and hurting themselves, because again, these aren't business people, right? That's the reality. That's why these stupid things keep happening, and it's too late for the NCAA to step in and do anything, because they've allowed too much to happen. There's too many cowards. But if the ACC doesn't do something quick and do something heavy, then they're going to be in trouble. And I don't know what that is. I don't know what that move is. I don't know if CBS has enough money to do this. I don't know if Fox is willing to bring them on. I don't know what that is. I don't know if Notre Dame can kind of I'm confident that Fox wants Notre Dame. Now, will this Big Ten move change that? I don't know. That's not anything new. Does Notre Dame have enough pull with Fox to bring the ACC into the fold or not? I don't know. Is Fox willing to do what they need to do to get the ACC out of the ESPN contract? I mean, is that even possible? I know Notre Dame can get out with a big fee, but can the whole conference get out? I don't know the answer to those things. But whatever the ACC is going to do, it's going to have to do it quick, because Florida State's not going to wait around forever. They are hurting from. I mean, that's the reason Jimbo left. Their facilities have fallen way behind. They just don't have the money flowing into that program that SEC schools do. And a lot of it is because they rely far more on the TV money than Notre Dame does.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the reality, especially these state schools. And that's what COVID has brought about. This is not being discussed enough. The whole COVID thing really shook a lot of people in college sports, because what they realized is when sports were canceled, they realized like we were living way outside of our budgets, because they weren't getting the same money back from stadiums and the TV deals and all this other kind of stuff. And they realized like we were living outside of our means, right? We were relying solely on this stuff over here. And so many teams took big hits financially during the COVID thing. And because if you're living outside your means and you lose a period, you can't then rebuild your war chest, so to speak, because you're already spending more than you're getting in, or as much as you're getting in, and you're distributing it to this program. Because these things, especially state schools, they pay for so much of everything on campus, the TV deals, the revenue from games, and it just pays for so much of the stuff on campus. And they're realizing like, wow, like we need that even more than we realized. And as this arms race is taking off, and the Big Ten's getting $50 million a year, and the SEC's getting $40-50 million a year, and that's going to raise up to $60-70 next, they're realizing like, yeah, imagine what that could do for us. And it's all about greed and, bad business policies and all that other kind of stuff. But they're not going to wait around out of loyalty to the ACC. They will sell the ACC out in heart, because let's not forget the last time Notre Dame won a national title, Florida State was an independent. Right. They haven't been in the ACC that long. This isn't like they have 90 years of tradition like the USC had with the Pac-12. I mean, that's a tradition where you're talking about selling out, like just complete sacrificing your entire tradition for money. That's what the Pac-12 or USC and UCLA did to Pac-12. I don't believe that that's the same for Florida State, because they don't have a long tradition. They haven't even been in the ACC my entire lifetime. I think I was a teenager when they joined the ACC, or close to it. because a reminder, when Notre Dame won the title in 1988, Florida State was an independent. So they didn't join the ACC. Sometime between 88 to 93 is when Florida State joined the ACC. So that's the domino to me that's going to collapse the ACC. If they can't make a move and they're going to need – I mean, guys, can they even do it without Notre Dame?
No.
I don't think they can. I don't see the move
so.
for the ACC without Notre
No,
Dame.
because they're going to have to renegotiate their TV deal,
Right.
and they're only going to have a strong footing to renegotiate that TV deal for big money
Right.
if Notre Dame's involved.
Right.
And that's the only way they're going to be able to hold on to the Florida States, the Clemsons, the Miamis of the world. Period. End of discussion.
Well,
Right.
when you said they have to do something drastic, and that's something drastic, right? Pulling someone like Notre Dame into the folds, I think that can reverse some momentum. I don't even know if it completely closes the momentum though, because it's just with how it's trending.
Right. That's just the reality. And somebody said Miami will jump ship too. Miami may jump ship, but Miami's a different animal. Miami's a private school, and they've got a much bigger donor base. That's the thing that people got to understand is a school like Miami, that's a phenomenal school. And say, well, why doesn't Florida State's a mediocre to bad public school? They're not producing the donors that Miami produces, that Duke produces, that Notre Dame produces. They don't have quite the volume of students like a Michigan or an Ohio State who are just massive schools, right?
Mhm.
It's just a different animal. It's just a real different animal. And so that's why Miami's that doesn't mean if Miami leads for the SEC, it's for different reasons. It's not because they have to, because they're hemorrhaging money like Florida State is. They may do it, but it's going to be more of just because they want the payout. And they see, because here's the thing, if the ACC doesn't move too, if you're Clemson, if you're Miami, if you're Florida State, teams that they want, if you're North Carolina and Duke, who the Big Ten wants, what's your reason to stay in the ACC right now if they just sit back and do nothing?
Right.
There isn't one. Like you guys are clueless. Like you guys don't have a clue what you're doing. Like, what I think it's like if there's like a 2-year buyout, you got to pay 2 years worth of what your TV contract. That's fine. We'll make that up in 2 years being in the Big Ten. Right. For if you're paying us 26 and the Big Ten's going to pay us 60, we'll make. I mean, I'm not great at math, guys, but you're going to make that up pretty freaking quickly.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And that's the difference. So. It's going to be wild. So if it's kind of like, hey, ACC, it's your move. What are you going to do? Because right now it's the big two.
No, they do need to make a move because otherwise, you're going to have two power conferences and the ACC is going to get left behind, just like the Big 12 and the Pac-12, 10, whatever number they go by these days.
I mean, yeah, seriously.
It'll be the Pac-10 here soon, right?
The Big 10's going to have 20-some teams. It's like, like I always joke, you wonder why kids are suck at math now. It's because, like,
it's the Big 16. It's going to be the Big 16. The Pac-12 is going to go back to the Pac-10.
The Big 12 has had 10 teams forever. The Big 10's had 4. It used to be the Big 10. At least it used to be as funny when they got at least the Big 10 plus 1. You can at least have some fun with it. You could boo the 10 with like the 1. Remember how they do that? They had like the Big 10, and then they the 1 kind of cut into the 10 thing, like whatever. But now it's like you got 16 freaking teams, and they're going to keep growing. Like Washington and Oregon. Reports are that Washington and Oregon have petitioned to join the Big 10, and that's a decent market. Seattle's a decent market. There's nothing in it for them for Oregon other than just getting a good sports program and the Phil Knight money. That'd be the only reason to get them. It's not a TV market, but Seattle's a decent sized TV market, I think. Sure. But are people in Seattle really going to care about watching Washington take on Rutgers and Indiana and Purdue? And I'm not going to give a crap about that.
Don't badmouth Rutgers, man.
Nobody's going to care. Just like people in New Jersey and New York don't even care about Rutgers.
I love that. Somebody that said, "Oh, the Big Ten has the New York market with a stranglehold." Do they though? Yeah. I mean, is Rutgers really the tie that binds New York together? Like,
they're coming to Piscataway for a game. Like, oh, okay,
I don't.
Whatever. Nobody gives a crap. That's just nonsense. Like, let's be honest. If Notre Dame played a game in New York, right, again, and Ohio State played a game in New York, does anybody think Ohio State would have more? You know what I mean? Like, have more. No, it's just, and that's okay. It's fine. It's just. People just need to understand kind of the business behind this of why Notre Dame does what they do. And nothing frustrates me more than when fan bases of other teams, and we even see it now with some younger Notre Dame fans who think that this whole thing is about what happened in the 90s. Like, you're out of your minds. Or the people say, well, this happened over 100 years ago with Fritz Chrysler. Hey, this happened multiple times. It started with Fritz Chrysler. It continued into the 50s, right? And it's like this is my favorite. Well, no one around now was alive then. I'm like, you do realize the slippery slope that creates, right? So like, if you're saying, well, look, the KKK sucked 50 years ago, but all those guys are dead. It's a bunch of new people. It's the same freaking, you know what I mean? Like, and until they step up and say, like, I'll tell you what, guys, this is going to be funny. This is my pithy thing I'm going to say. If I'm Notre Dame, here's my Big Ten. Hey, Big Ten calls. You know what my stand would be? Fine. We'll join. Here's our one condition. Oh, you guys want to have certain? No. We'll play noon games. You want to play noon games? Well, no. We'll do that. We'll be in the West. That's fine. We have one condition. Kick Michigan out.
I don't even know what the response would be. I think the response would probably be just what mine was like.
That's it. That's my one thing. And for people to say that the funny thing is somebody just put it in there. Somebody says that the history doesn't matter because Notre Dame plays in the Big Ten and hockey. Who gives a crap about hockey?
No, they don't. Sorry.
Who cares about hockey? I think this is a great comment from Timeout Tom, too, because Penn State used to be a national power, and this is a great point. Since joining the Big Ten, Penn State has been outsiders looking in. If Notre Dame could bring Penn State along with them to the ACC, it could make the ACC a viable option. I would not do that. I would take the Penn State to a new league. That's what I would do. I would start a new league and say, screw the ACC and just take teams from them is what I would do. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But I do think the point, though, is Penn State lost a lot of prestige once they joined the Big Ten.
Yep.
You look, Notre Dame, right now, Notre Dame is kind of on its own pedestal. The reason so many people in the media want Notre Dame to join a conference because they want to get Notre Dame off that pedestal. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about. 1,000%. That's why ESPN won. I mean, we want them because we know we can make money off of them. But by making money off of them, we're also bringing them down. And I'm going to say something right now, and I'm going to leave it here.
Right.
The next year to 2 years is going to largely, if Notre Dame chooses to stay independent now, here's where I think things could change. If Marcus Freeman is who we think he is, the next 2 years is going to allow Notre Dame to remain an independent program, no matter what happens. And that is, if Notre Dame can win a title in the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years, as this whole thing shakes out, probably the next two, because 22 and 23, 24 is when the Big Ten, USC and UCLA join. I think Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC in 23. And then the next year, and then you kind of Notre Dame's TV contract is up and all that kind of stuff. If Notre Dame can win a title either this year or next, and preferably this year, because who knows what's going to be true in 2 years, or at least close enough to the season now where it's like, certain things are going to happen during the season. If Marcus Freeman is who we think he is, that is the leverage that Notre Dame needs to say, look, we just won a title. You're going to literally leave out a national champion from your deal?
Right.
Really? Because if Notre Dame wins a title these next 2 years, think of the teams they're going to play, the teams they'd have to beat, and the eyes that are going to be on them. And every single time Notre Dame is good, whether it was Georgia in 2019 or Clemson in 2020, those games are always some of the most heavily televised games in the country. And the only other games that match are the big rivalry games. Right. And so if they don't, however, if they're just kind of more the same, that is the thing that gets me a little bit concerned about how the big leagues could kind of start trying to throw their weight around to gang up on Notre Dame. Because once the ACC dies, then there's less leverage for Notre Dame against those other leagues. Because those other leagues can kind of say, hey, we're going to have Notre Dame's back. We're going to protect Notre Dame. The Big 12 is going to protect Notre Dame with the holding out of hope that maybe that when Notre Dame is forced to join a league, it'll be us. And the ACC will do the same thing. The Big 10 is going to know that the Notre Dame does not want to join the SEC. They're going to know that. And I personally would rather join the SEC than playing the Big 10 for many reasons. But that's the thing is the next 2 years could ultimately silence all of this. Because if Jack Swarbrick can kind of go around with a national title in his back pocket when he's doing TV deal negotiations with Fox or
that wields a lot of
CBS or who right now doesn't have anything, and I don't know if they want to get back into college football. I don't know. I don't know what their financial situation is, but that would be the thing that would allow Notre Dame to wield a seriously big stick. Anything else you guys want to add now that my rant is over? Anything else you guys want to add before we move on to other stuff?
You sure we need a show next week?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No,
oh, yeah.
Kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Just kidding.
Oh, yeah. Anything else you guys want to add?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Good.
No, I just can't stand ignorant people. Can I just say that out loud?
Yeah.
And then we'll move on.
Well, there's a lot more of that now. What I've come to realize.
Well, and there's a lot more of that because now those people have mouthpieces called Twitter, and it's super annoying.
I was about to say social media has escalated. That
usually the morons just kind of sat in their corner and spewed whatever.
Or in their basements.
You can shut the door on them and walk away.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm
Mom,
just not
meatloaf.
Yeah.
You know, like
exactly. It's just it's unbelievable, and it is very difficult not to just fire back at people. I just you know what.
I just do because I don't care, especially if I see that they don't follow me. Like this is some moron from another fan base. I'm gonna have some fun with you.
It's so frustrating.
I push back way too much as well, but I do partake in this as well.
Yeah.
Red Notre Dame football
text run with so much going on right now with college football, NIL realignment in Notre Dame, recruiting green jerseys. Can you give an Irish breakdown of the 2005 recruiting class? It still haunts me. Red text run. I don't know what you're referring to. The 2005 recruiting class in my memory doesn't exist anymore. I have completely blocked it out. So I don't know what you're referring to. I didn't know Notre Dame had a recruiting class.
Well, they didn't really.
I'm looking this up right now.
It is so bad. It is one of the worst. It is one of
coming
the worst
off of the 2005 season.
Can I read it?
Go for it.
Can I read it off? All right. We got, according to 24/7 Sports, DJ Horde, top ranked recruits there. Joey Hibben, Paul Duncan.
Joey Hibben was actually one of the better players reputation-wise in that class.
Yeah, he was 153 according to 24/7 Sports in the nation. Michael Turkovich, who I remember. Kevin Washington, Scott Smith.
Oh my gosh.
Evan Sharpley.
Oh, I know him.
David Bruton, who's a decent player. Ray Herring, Patrick Kuntz, David Grimes, Kyle McCarthy, Daryl Hand, Asaf Schwab, and Steve Quinn.
Wow. That's a forgettable class.
Yeah, and it followed this class. David Walke and David Bragg at quarterback, Darren Bragg at quarterback, Darius Walker and Justin Hoskins at running back. Darius Walker was a good player. The wide receiver that recruit's name was – the offensive line was Chance Incarnato. That's because they didn't sign a wide receiver. John Cato. Linebacker, Abdel Banda. You guys remember him?
Nope.
Maurice Crum. Exactly. Maurice Crum.
I remember him.
Brandon Nicholas, Ronald Talley, Justin Brown were the linebackers. And then this vaunted DB class. They had Anthony Vernaglia was a linebacker. They had the DB class of Treg Duerson, Junior Jabby, Leo Farine, and Terrell Lambert. Terrell Lambert's a good player. Those were 2 years in back-to-back years. That is a dreadful 2-year stretch. And people want to know, when people point to Ty Willingham's record, people that want to accuse Notre Dame of things, well, Ty had a better winning percentage than Charlie Weiss. Yeah, he did. But this is why Ty got fired. It's this right here. It's 2 years of miserable recruiting because there was no effort. And I've shared the Mark Sanchez story before on this site too. I mean, that's why he got fired after 3 years. Davey at least worked.
Share the Mark Sanchez story again. I don't think I've heard
Basically, he visited. Yeah, you and I have talked about this. He visited campus. He shows up. Okay. None of the coaches are around. It's an unofficial visit during the summer. None of the coaches are around. And, and all of a sudden, like eventually Bill Diedrich shows up and Ty was nowhere to be found. As the story goes, Kevin White gets wind of the fact that like the number one player in the country is on campus and Ty's nowhere to be found. He calls Ty. Ty's playing golf. And Kevin White makes him leave the golf course to come meet with Mark Sanchez.
He has to make him? Okay.
Yep.
I mean, in 2004 or 3 or whenever that was, you could be like, well, I didn't know he was going to be on campus. Communicate. Yeah. I'll be right there.
That's part of that 05 class, that miserable 05 class.
I'll be right there. Not, oh, come on. I've only got 3 holes to go. Just tell him to hold on a second.
That 2005 class was ranked by 247 as the 39th ranked class in the country.
Which is higher than what Michigan is currently ranked. So anyway,
hello.
And LSU, right? Is it LSU?
Yes,
the 40s right out too? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hold on, I got another microphone over there. I'll drop it.
Yeah. Please don't. That one still works.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, it was just. I mean, that's why Ty got fired. It was that stuff. It was just no work. just put in no work. I mean, he made Brian Kelly look like a grinder.
I was going to say, we
trail.
make fun of Brian Kelly for golfing
Right.
and doing things, but yeah, he was a grinder in comparison.
Right.
I agree with you there.
Yes, 1,000%.
Yes.
Blake Gajar, what are some realistic options for Notre Dame in 2023 quarterback position?
Well,
we'll dive into this. Blake, I wanted to pull this up because I do want to say a couple things, but Ryan, we're going to have a longer show about this next week, probably.
Yeah.
We'll dive into this next week. Austin Novosad is a kid whose name is already out there. I don't mind throwing that out there. There's some other names we're hearing. I don't want to start throwing names out there until we have an idea of if Notre Dame's legitimately going to make a run. I know they're evaluating options, but I'm going to remind people that Notre Dame has not stopped recruiting Dante Moore. Right. I mean,
right.
I think they're going to kind of see, like, just keep going until he decides something else. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I mean, we're still feeling like what we've been told recently is true. But I mean, they're not done with that one yet. And he hasn't made a decision. He hasn't made a public decision yet, as far as we know.
Can I ask a quick question about that? I'm sure people are wondering. So with this USC, UCLA, Pac-12 question marks all over the place, does that put the Oregon crystal balls and everything in jeopardy based on what that conference might look like by the time he gets there?
Someone asked me that yesterday.
I'm just curious your guys' thoughts.
We can only give our opinion on that.
Right.
So I want to let everyone know that what's about to follow. Ryan, I'll give you the chance. Andrew says this is our opinion. It's way too. Dante was in Los Angeles yesterday at the Elite 11. He's just now getting home.
Right.
I doubt that he's had time to really process that and digest it. So this is 100% our opinion. So Ryan, why don't you go ahead and give your opinion on whether or not you think it will or won't have an impact?
I don't think so. I think there's other factors that I'm not going to get into that are more important to this recruitment, at least from people close to Dante's side. And to your point, Brian, I mean, you just talked a little bit about that Oregon's petition to be in the Big Ten, right? So Oregon's a good football program. They have some fanfare. They have a name recognition, right? So they're not going to be left in the dust and just like, oh, what the heck is going to happen? Like they're going to be in one of those super conferences
because of Phil
right?
Knight. Because of Phil Knight, I would imagine that they'll be somewhere. I mean,
yes.
If it wasn't for Phil Knight, Oregon would get left out. They would because because this you got people. Do people understand this yet? This isn't about the quality of the football programs. This is about the TV market,
and it clearly has nothing to do with any of their other programs either, because people go to Oregon for the track program, and now track gets to run at Wisconsin for March, and like all
if USC's baseball team is going to be coming to Minnesota in March. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Ton of sense. Yeah, exactly.
Stupid, but it has nothing to do with sports. This is 1,000% about TV markets and business deals. It's not about does this make sense for football or baseball or whatever. I actually think it could have an impact on Dante just because he's such a smart kid, but I have no evidence that it will. To me, it just I think the reason I'm hesitant to even give that opinion is because, like Ryan said, what if Oregon joins the Big Ten? That could actually help them with Dante
for sure.
If they get left out, it could hurt them with maybe not with his family or his handlers, but Dante's a smart kid. He's a pretty savvy kid. If they get left out and rejected by the Big Ten, then it could have an impact. If they join the Big Ten, then I think it helps because then he's going to get to play a bunch of road games back home in front of, a more favorable audience, which is absurd.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. But yeah, it could help them if they join. I think it could hurt them if they don't. But it just depends on whether or not he's going to make a decision now or if he wants to let this thing play out.
There's a lot of moving parts for sure.
I think where this might have again, this is 100% my opinion, where it might have an impact is, let's say he was going to commit this week. He may want to step back and say, hold on, let me let this settle a little bit and see how it goes before I make a move.
Yeah.
Reevaluate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let me see here. Tavis McKay asks, if Irish Breakdown had to design the Notre Dame Shamrock jersey for BYU game, what would it be and why? My choice would be something similar to the 2013 ones. Now, Notre Dame would be the home team, right? So I didn't love the idea of the white one simply because you're supposed to be the home team.
Oh, okay. I had to look and see what the 2013 ones were. Okay.
Yeah, it was those white ones, which were really sharp. Yeah,
they were. I agree.
Numbers and they were really sharp. I would try to go like for me, the Shamrock series is the game where you can do something fun. Like I'm okay putting a Shamrock helmet, a Shamrock on a helmet. Like I heard you guys talking. I think it was show you were on, Sean, where you guys talking about like put a Shamrock in helmet. I'm completely opposed to putting anything on the helmet other than the number and like the brand or whatever, NCA, like stuff you have to have on there for your normal. I like the uniqueness of just the gold helmet. I'm all about that. But I'm not someone who's like never put anything on the helmet. It just better be something sharp or something good or something traditional. Like I hated the one the year where it was like half blue and half gold. I thought that was stupid.
Half was dumb.
There's the one year it looked like a kickball. Remember how the kickball had like the little indentations, kickballs growing up, and it looked like they had kickballs on it?
What year was that? I don't
know. I know exactly what you're talking about.
2011, I think it was. Was that the Maryland game? I'm trying to think of which one that was.
Speaking of ugly uniforms.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You mean the one where it looks like the Maryland, somebody vomited the Maryland flag onto a helmet?
I hate Maryland's uniforms.
So
man.
disgusting.
They're so ugly. They're so
I would
ugly.
remember the 2011 game against Michigan when they put the gold Shamrocks on the helmets with those throwback? I thought those were sharp.
Those were super sharp.
I really liked
the ones in 2011 were super sharp.
I liked those. So I would do something like that. I would maybe like throw like a Shamrock. I thought I didn't like the helmets in 2014 overall, but I did like having the interlocking ND on the helmet. I thought that was cool. So maybe
the Yankee ones.
That was 18. The 14 was the one in Indianapolis against Purdue.
Okay.
Where they did like the throwback to like the dome and the basilica, and they had the different things on it. Remember that? Those were okay. They were like all blue.
Yeah.
The
basketball team has jerseys kind of like that these days.
Yeah.
With the gold.
I'd want to do something with green. That's my thing. Is my whole point of the Shamrock should be something. And I loved the video that Marcus Freeman did yesterday.
That was hilarious.
It spoke for so many Notre Dame fans for years. Like, why are we doing an Irish wear green game and none of the Notre Dame, the team doesn't wear green? Like, why doesn't Notre Dame make better use of green? Like I've said, just for the normal uniforms, I would go to green cleats and green gloves, or green cleats and gold gloves, but I'd say go green and green. I think that'd be super sharp. Like, I just don't think the football team takes enough advantage of the green aspect of the program for me. And so I think that'd be really cool. That's just my 2 cents. But I would probably do something green. I'm trying to think of how do I describe it. I mean, you guys can interject at any point in time. Like, this is kind of just thinking out loud of what we'd but something green, the green jerseys. I don't like the green on the mustard gold. I think that like the 2018 green jersey game, that was hideous. I thought that was ugly.
What about 2016 versus Army? Those green ones.
It was like an ugly darker green. I didn't like that.
Darker green. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't like that. I like the bright Kelly green that the basketball team wears at like when the baseball team wears the green jerseys, I think those look sharp. Not the green on green though. That's the one thing I don't love green on green though.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
Like I almost kind of like gold, green, and white is kind of what I think would be really sharp, But I don't like gold, green, and blue pants. I think you got to go green on both or green and white. I don't think the green and the gold go super great together for the pants because it's not a shiny, bright gold. You know what I mean? Like, I just have never liked the green jerseys with the yellow or gold pants. I just have never liked those. I'd go all green or I'd go white pants, to be honest with you. And kind of, to me, that has like kind of an NFL feel, like the professional feel,
You like the do you like the Eagles Kelly greens? They usually wear the white bottoms with those. I actually kind of like the Kelly green Eagles jerseys. I traditionally do not like the Eagles jerseys at all, but the Kelly greens I think are kind of sharp.
I like the brighter greens. I mean, Kelly green is a brighter
like the color that you're wearing right now.
Yeah. And like Notre Dame wore in 2015 in Fenway.
Yeah.
The reason those jerseys didn't look great on TV because you couldn't see the numbers. And because it was bad lighting, it was baseball lighting, not football lighting. You know what I mean? But when you saw them up close, they were sharp. Like when they, Vince, I don't know if you remember this, but when they had them on the dummy or the mannequin, man, those look sweet. Like they were one of my favorite ones. They just looked bad on TV and they were terrible in the press box. Like we couldn't see the numbers.
Yeah,
like because they were green on green. So that
they don't think about us when they.
No, they don't.
No.
But that's typical Under Armour. Like, how's this?
I
gonna
like
look on
white
TV?
pants. I think white
Yeah.
pants are clean.
Yeah.
From a baseball standpoint, from a football standpoint, I like white pants. So I'm down with the white pants, maybe with a little bit of gold trim, golden green trim, and then a green jersey. I think would look really, really good. As far as the helmet is concerned, if it's a Shamrock Series helmet, go with your normal gold helmet and you throw a green Shamrock on there. I'm all about it. I think that you keep it very simple. Like they've gone overboard with the helmets in some of these Shamrock games. So way too busy, way too much thinking about it. So I'm generally a simple guy anyway, as far as the jerseys were concerned. I mean, the Notre Dame jersey that I wore the other day in the show is basically what I patterned my Riley jerseys after. You know what I mean? Just classic look. And I like that in football too.
Yeah.
So you throw a Shamrock on the side, a clean green jersey, white pants, I'm good to go. I think that would
what year? Good. What year was the jersey? It was blue, and then the helmet had the splits in it. You know,
that was 2012.
2012
against Miami and
Teo was still there, right? With that one, I think.
Yeah. Now, if the results look like that, I'll wear whatever the heck they want to wear. You know what I mean? If the results are a 41-3 beatdown, I'll take that as well. You know what's funny? I know very few fans liked the 2018 Yankee Stadium's uniform. I loved him.
I did not.
I didn't like him either
because of you're playing in Yankee Stadium. Like, you're still honoring your own colors. Your own colors. I thought they looked sharp, and those were some of the best looking in person. Like, sitting up in the press box in Yankee Stadium, like, those looked really sharp. But nobody liked those, and I thought that was an homage to where you were playing. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, nobody liked those. Nobody liked those. I loved those. I loved them.
It's the same reason that I don't. I mean, I will admit 100%.
I'm talking, and again, when I talk about that, I'm talking jersey pants. I hated the helmet. It should always be a gold helmet to me.
It was a blue helmet with like the circle thing. Yeah, with the ND and locking ND.
I'm talking the jerseys, the pants, the pinstripes.
The pinstripes.
I didn't like the pinstripes.
Yeah. I did.
Threw it off for me.
I hate the Yankees. I hate the Yankees, and I think that's part of it. That's definitely part of it for me. There's no question. But the team that I do follow, the Cubs, they're classic pinstripe team too. So I just didn't. I don't know. It didn't look right on a football uniform to me.
Yeah,
I
get that.
I didn't dig it.
I like Mace AK's idea. Do a helmet with the IB logo on the side.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, that's what I'm about.
I was going to say that, but I thought I'd sound too much like a homer, so I stopped.
Vince is out. Vince is breaking stuff.
Just breaking stuff over here. But see, you get the IB logo right there. That's what we need.
I didn't want you to break your printer and your baseball bat.
Pretty sure it broke my printer, but that's okay. It was worth it. That's how I broke my last printer, by the way.
Gosh.
The screen shattered because the bat fell.
Yeah. Hope your players aren't watching that that atrocity of your grip on the baseball just now.
It's not broken. Everybody can take a breath. Okay. It's not broken.
Right. Anyway, gold, green, white, or gold, green. That's some kind of uniform like that I would have, and I would want to have something traditional, like tied in with like something embroidered, something like that would be fun. But yeah.
What do you think they're going to do because of Vegas? Like, are they going to have like the Vegas sign with an ND in the middle of it? They're going to do something stupid like that.
Something like a green dollar sign, right? Like, something stupid like that. Oh, God. You know what? I like the ones they did in Chicago last year. I didn't like them at first.
No, I actually, they were very simple.
Yeah,
I liked them, to be honest with you.
I hated them when they showed them. I'm not gonna lie. Like, when they released them, like on Twitter, I was like, I hate these. But then when you saw them, like, okay, when you see them up close in person, you see them on TV, they were great on TV.
Yes, they were,
and they looked really sharp in person. Like when you saw the actual jerseys, and they were them off the mannequin or off the. Yeah.
They were a little bit similar to those '88 throwback one, just big numbers that you could see, very simple stripe. Like I dug those jerseys. I didn't like them at first either. I was like, that's it. That's what they came up with, right. But I was like, you know what? I like that. That was Corey Flynn says they're too simple. I like simple.
Right.
That's how I roll, man.
I think you can be flashy. I think, to me, like Oregon's uniforms, 8 out of 10 of their uniforms, I think, suck.
They're horrible
because there's just too much going on.
Right.
And that's like all the ones that Notre Dame has done that I've hated. It's because there's so much, like the 2012, the Ryan game, the game where like it was like half, gold, and it was half blue, and it's just there's
it's
way too
too
much
much.
going on. Like, I think simple can be sharp if you do it right. And that's my thing is like I said, something really nice green with white pants and some kind of like blue, gold, and white, blue, gold, and green stripes on the side or something like that, with gold helmets with a Shamrock or an interlocking ND. I kind of think that would be or Shamrock interlocking ND, right? But still the gold helmet, something like that. I think it'd be sharp. I like simple. I think if you do it right, simple can be really sharp.
I agree.
Like just throwing a bunch of different crap on there to distract you with colors and designs is just not
to do
my
it.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not my thing. Ryan, have you said kind of what you would like to see?
I would say this. I am not the person to ask for what looks good personally. This is what I consider looking good. So if you're not,
Ryan
into
was a
my
linebacker
taste,
and an offensive lineman. I forgot
Yeah,
that. Vince was
used
a
to-
receiver. I was a quarterback.
I used to wear a butterfly extending neck roll and wore no gloves. So that's my swag,
Look at
man.
you.
Oh yeah.
You're
Okay,
one of those
I can dig
guys.
that.
I love
I can dig that.
I
love
was
that.
one of those. I
can dig
100%
that.
one of those guys.
He would have been a
love
neck
that.
roll guy if he was our age, Vince.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
tie with the tie. It's
Yep.
like tied up with a shoelace.
Yep. He'd have definitely would have been a neck roll guy. Yep. Yep. The fact that he doesn't know what you're talking about too is also funny.
I know it. I know.
So-
I've seen
Helmet.
them all, man. The cowboy collars, the butterflies. I've
Yep.
seen it all.
He'd have been a neck roll guy if he was our age.
You're
There's no
not
doubt
wrong.
about it.
And I love that about
Which,
him.
that's a lot of the guys in the 88 defense were that way too.
Yep.
Here's a good one. I'll ask you guys this as well. Tavis McKay also
All
asked,
right.
Brian, if you were calling plays for Notre Dame versus Ohio State and all went to plan, what would be your first 5 play calls?
Are we doing a script right now?
Are we getting the script going?
Well, the first thing you have to understand about me is on the first 5 plays, I'm going to have 3 different personnel groupings and 5 different formations. And I'm going to motion on at least 3 of them.
You're throwing them all out there.
Because to me, that's what the early script is more so about. I want to see what you're going to do to what I'm trying to do, more so than play calls. And that's what a lot of fans got to understand about scripts. Scripts are, the play call is important. You got to call a play you think it's going to work. But one of the things you're trying to feel out is how are they going to play?
How are they going to adjust? How are they
going to
adjusting
line
what you
up?
wanna do?
Like I'm calling an inside zone play, but I'm going to get a shift in emotion because I want to see how they're going to move to that. Not just to try to create a leverage or numbers advantage in the run game, but I want to see how they're going to come back to that. Because if they do this, then I'm coming back with this play that we think is going to work with a pass concept or whatever. So that's the first thing to understand is first 5 plays, I'm going 11 personnel at least once. I'm going 12 personnel at least once. I'm going 21 personnel at least once. First 5 plays of the game, just to throw something at them. So that would be what I would do. Kind of get them thinking. His other thing too is I want to get them after that first series. I want them to spend the whole next time out thinking about, well, gee, we weren't expecting this, or what do we do for that? And then I'm coming back with some of my other stuff. That's what I would do, guys. I would make sure that I get at least 1 empty set early on because, again, I want to see how they handle empty.
Yeah.
Now, line up an empty. You can motion back inside and run the football, but I'm starting out an empty. I want to see how they're going to line up to empty. And then I would maybe have a play in the first 10 where we're going to start off in a base set and then boom out to empty.
Shift to empty. Yeah.
Right. And I want to see how they handle that.
Yep.
I'm going to have at least 1 designed run to the quarterback in the first 5. I'm going to have an inside zone or a duo call in the first 5. I'm going to have a play action deep shot in the first 5. Outside of that, it's just about kind of doing what you do. I'd probably have a couple of run calls with RPOs, maybe a counter with an RPO. I'd probably call 4 runs and a play action is probably what I would call the first 5. I would just make sure I had RPOs built into just
there you go.
Maybe all but one of those runs, so
the key.
I can get the ball out, right?
You can't be wrong, and you can't be wrong. Like
right.
that's the biggest thing. It's like I don't want to call stuff that I could potentially be wrong about, but you build in things that so you're not wrong, that the defense is wrong.
Right.
That's what you want to do.
Yeah. So I'd probably call like a counter, an inside zone. The only pure run would be a read zone. I would want to call one where I want to see what their backside does. I want to see how they handle that backside, and if they're going to bring that guy down.
Well, and I would also have I'd have like an orbit motion off of that as well, just to see. Okay, if we're looking at the backside, what do you do when I motion somebody at the same time?
I would actually, and I would orbit away from where the quarterback would pull and run to. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I would do. And again, with how Ohio State lines up,
We're getting deep in the weeds here, buddy.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
love
like, I know what Jim Knowles did with the personnel at Oklahoma State. Part of this, too, is I want to see how Jim Knowles is going to react to different things with the Ohio State personnel.
Right.
As opposed to just lining up in 11 personnel and going 2x2 or 3x1 for 5 plays, where you're just not really stressing them in any kind of way. I want to stress them early to see how they handle it. But when you do that, to me, there's 2 ways to do it. One is you kind of stay somewhat simple with your alignments, so you can maybe get a little bit more complex with your play calls, which I might do if I had a veteran quarterback, because hey, maybe we can steal a play here because they blow a coverage because we flooded this zone or whatever, and they blew a coverage with a first-year coordinator. But because I have a first-year quarterback, I don't want to get complex with the play calls. My play calls will be simple: inside zone, duo, counter, quarterback read.
You dress it up. You dress it up with formations and motions.
But with RPOs, hey, look, man, the window's open and the guy's off. Just catch it, throw it. We're all good. You know, so where he can get some easy throws mixed in there. They can't load the box, so we can just pull and throw it out. But I'd want the play calls to be a little bit more. Let's get him going. I'm going to have one run to him. There's going to be some RPOs where either they empty the box out or we give us good box numbers and he just keeps handing off and we run it right at you. Or if they want to reduce in to play the run, he can just pull it and throw it out on a bubble screen or a quick hitch or a quick out, something like that on an RPO, or a one-on-one shot. If they want to go 8 in the box and leave Braden Lindsey one-on-one to the field, take a shot, take an RPO shot, or something like that. And the only pass call I would definitely call is I would probably call like a play action, but it wouldn't be my first play. I'd want to get a couple plays in before I would call a play action. Right. Establish that, hey, we're running it at you. You better come up. And then
otherwise play action, this is what people don't understand about play action doesn't work unless you have the threat of the run. Right. Otherwise you're just wasting your time.
Right.
That's no fun. It's no fun.
Right.
Double pass, double reverse, hook it lateral, Statue of Liberty, triple reverse.
Note to self: don't hire Ryan to call an
He's your defensive.
offense.
He's a defensive guy. That's what
Okay. Note made. Note made. What's going to happen is someone's going to be like, Irish Breakdown said the Notre Dame should run a hook and ladder and the double reverse. And that's what's going to happen.
Hey, every time someone runs a Statue of Liberty, it works. Just ask Boise State against Oklahoma, all right?
Okay. Get your wife.
Moving on.
Too.
Moving on. Too. Christopher Crosby with CJ Carr now committed for 2024. Do you guys know if he still plans to do 7-on-7s and other camps? I don't think it matters where he should be ranked, but it's a good tool for him to recruit others. I would imagine
recruiting others. Don't worry.
Yeah. But I mean, he did those things.
Yeah.
He did those things last year. I mean, and he'll probably do them again next year. I would imagine so. I
would have no reason to think that he wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right. It's just all part of everything. I mean, that's just what guys do.
One, it's like it's a competitive kid, but also, I mean, the main point to your point, Christopher, is that's a big recruiting tool to be around those types of guys. So agree.
The thing to keep in mind is he did a lot of that stuff this year too. Like he competed at the Elite 11 down in Tennessee, and he was by multiple outlets, one including SI, voted him as arguably the top performer there over guys like Nico was there, Brock Glenn was there, some big names. It's just the Elite 11 finals is only for seniors, rising seniors. So he wasn't eligible to go to the finals, but he shined in that. So yeah, I think we'll see that stuff next year. There's no doubt. Plus, there's the pressures off of. Now, will he do camps? I doubt he does camps. Like he's not. I don't think he's going to go to like the rivals Ohio camp, right? Like that's usually for underclassmen. But as far as like the big 7-on-7 stuff and the Elite 11 stuff and things like that, I imagine he'll do that stuff next year. No doubt. We'll see it. We'll see CJ Carr at the Elite 11 next year. In my
opinion.
Yeah, because he was pretty good at it this year, and that's made for a kid like him.
Yeah,
right. That drop back, like just accurate,
spinning it. Yeah, exactly.
It's not a camp you're going to want like Phil Dracovic and Tyler Buckner, and like there's a kid going to Florida State and Chris Parson, who I love on film, but like somebody texted me, a buddy of mine texted me, he's like, man, Avery Johnson's really struggling. I'm like, well, yeah, it's just that's not an Avery Johnson event.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's not an Avery Johnson event.
Now get him moving around also. Then we're talking.
Exactly. Tavis McKay rounding it out, pulling a John A1 today. Tavis says, Brian, if regular Mountain Dew was not an option, what next 2 flavors of Mountain Dew would be your go-to? I probably wouldn't.
No.
I don't really like. I
Not
haven't
not
tried
a,
many.
Not a Code Red guy.
No, and I'm not really like I don't do like the diet things. I would just
Baja Blast.
I drink a lot of milk too. I would just go to milk. I wouldn't. The reason I like regular Mountain Dew is I just like the flavor of regular Mountain Dew. Like
Diet
I used to
Mountain
like
Dew
Pepsi
is
a lot, but I don't
the
like Diet
devil.
Pepsi, Pepsi Colt, Pepsi Cherry. I don't like any of those. I don't like any of those.
Diet Mountain Dew is the devil. It's horrible. It
Yeah.
tastes horrible.
Yeah,
I've never even had Diet Mountain Dew, to be honest.
Oh,
I haven't had it.
it was an
Never had
accident
that.
that I
Yeah,
had it.
that
and
was
it
the same here, Vince. I had it by accident.
It's horrible.
Yes.
I'm like, what is this? What have I done? What have I done?
Yeah,
Right.
like growing
Right.
up, Diet Pepsi and regular Pepsi came in two completely different looking cans. You couldn't
Yes.
accidentally do that.
Yes.
Diet Mountain Dew,
It's
has
just like an
it's
opposite.
It's
Like
a lighter color,
yeah.
but it still looks like if you're
Right.
not paying attention, it looks like, oh wow, what's that?
So what have I
It
done?
was-
What have I
it
done?
was-
Brian, what's the preferred type of milk?
I'm 1%, so I drink 1% milk.
I'll tell you what, one of the hardest
I'm a
things I had to
2%er.
one of the hardest things I had to do when I got married is switch from 2 to 1.
Okay,
So that was the
I had to do
difficult
that because the
transition.
doctor told me I had to do that. And
Well,
I still don't understand why.
My wife went to 1. Or she was a skimmer, and we met in the
Okay,
middle.
I can't do skim milk.
No, it's water.
Mm-mm.
So we
My-
met in the
my-
middle. Now I'm used
Yeah.
to it, but like because that was almost 20 years ago. But that
I can only drink
it's not
skim
easy.
milk if I had to use it for like Cocoa Puffs or something. Where basically when you
Because it
get
turns
to the
into
end and you
chocolate
drink
milk
turns into
anyway.
chocolate milk. It masks the
I can't.
From
From a
yeah.
visual standpoint, you pour it over your cereal. It's like, did I just pour water on my cereal? What's happening?
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't
Yeah.
do it. Sorry.
My wife's lactose intolerant, so she's got the almond milk in the house
Ooh.
as well.
That's
Oat
not milk.
too sometimes.
My daughter
It's
does.
not milk. That's almond juice
Yeah, I don't get it. How do you get milk from a
because it's
Oh,
white.
Almond milk's not really. Almond milk's not even really that bad, if we're being honest.
It's
but-
fine. It may be great.
Yeah.
I've never had it. It's
Yeah.
not milk. It's juice.
Sure. Well, no, they milk the almonds. You know about that?
Oh man.
Another note: don't have Ryan teach his daughter's science class.
He's a social studies
If
teacher.
your daughter is if you ever have to homeschool your daughter at some point in time, let your wife handle the science classes, right?
Oh, man.
And the especially the biology class.
my wife's. I mean, my daughter is gonna roll her eyes so much when
Oh,
she's
yeah.
older. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh yeah,
Can't wait.
there's no doubt.
I already see it daily. That's okay.
Oh, let's try to get us back on track because we're about one more non-football question away from this sucker being completely off the rails. Christopher Crosby, we needed that after this crazy week.
Yes, we
Christopher
did.
Crosby says, Ryan, our running back room is pretty deep and talented, also very young. 24 has a bunch of great backs. What are the chances we take more than one? Hopefully one is Corey Smith. Love that kid's film. So Ryan, so two parts. Obviously, if you want to comment on Corey Smith, but
Yeah.
then also what are the chances in 2024 that Notre Dame takes a two backs?
I mean, I guess it's the running trend of the position, right? Because how many cycles in a row, Brian, has it been 2 running backs, right? Like, I mean, because they want to get to 2 this year, right? They got
Right.
2 previous class. They got 2 previous class before that as well, right? Estime and Diggs.
So
So I
are you
guess it
basically
would-
saying it depends if they get a second back in 23 or not?
I think it depends if they get a second back in 23, and it also depends what the room looks like. It's tough to project. Like, is every running back guaranteed that has more eligibility to be back for another one? Because at some point we're getting a very crowded room. So I would say it's possible, but I wouldn't be shocked if it stayed at 1 though in 2024. I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be overly shocked if it's 24. I'd say for me, I think just looking at numbers, maybe more likely it's 1 than 2 right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe, but to the question about Corey Smith, kid's dynamic, man. Like I compared him to Ronald Jones a couple weeks ago. Like that's who he reminds me of. Ronald Jones was a explosive play waiting to happen when he played at USC, and Dylan McCullough has a little experience with Ronald Jones. I think that's when you watch Corey Smith. I mean, that kid glides in the open field, man. Like he can run for days. He averaged like 9 yards a carry as a sophomore. He's got to be
calling easy.
Yeah, he's going to be a 4-4 kid. Like he's got a second gear. I like Corey Smith a lot. He's a dynamic weapon, and I think that he's we continue now see Notre Dame get those types of guys, right? Like we talked about Chris Tyree a lot. Jadarian Price is the same brand of runner. Even Jabron Payne has some of that in him, and I think Corey Smith is also that similar style. And I think Notre Dame likes that type of player. One cut, go. When you break when you get an angle, you're out. So,
I think if they get Jeremiah Love in this class and he starts at running back, I think they'll probably be at 1. But
Yeah.
look, there's always potential for roster shakeup. I mean, Chris Tyree's probably gone by the time the 24 class shows up. If there's another injury or somebody transfers, then I think that could open it up. But if everything kind of goes according to plan, they get Jeremiah Love, I don't think they take a second back. If they get Jeremiah Love, if they don't get Jeremiah Love, then I think they'll push for a second back. That's what I think that they'll do. So and that kind of is a question too we had from Zach Martin, Ryan. It says, does the Irish staff have a rough number they are looking to hit with the 2024 class? I think it's really way too early for that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just
so
many dependent things on that.
On who you land in. I mean, you know, do you end up getting a 5th DB? Do you get a 4th linebacker? Do you get a 6th offensive lineman? Which, you know, right now we don't see happening. Do you know, there's just so many. Do you get a 5th receiver? Which right now we don't necessarily see happening. Right? I mean, there's just so many things that factor into that. You know, do you get Jeremiah Love or not? And then
on the other side,
you have the season that you have where guys leave, and do certain players play so well that they maybe leave earlier than you anticipate?
Right.
That's going to open up numbers. Are you able to convince a lot of guys to come back? Because if you can convince a player that may leave, you can convince Brandon Joseph to come back. You're gladly going to take one less guy in 2024, right? I mean, because you want that kind of impact player. So there's just so much. The positions they've taken guys at now, it's like, well, yeah, you definitely need those guys, right? I mean, you know you're going to get a tight end, and that's your kind of your top guy on the board that you have a shot at. You know you need a quarterback. You're definitely going to take at least 2 defensive linemen, one inside, one outside-ish, and you know you need another receiver. You need more receivers. So those are no-brainer picks. They're not in a position where those are going to impact the numbers. Now, you know, if all of a sudden a bunch of receivers started wanting to commit, you have to start figuring out like, okay, what are we going to do here? But that they're not in that position just yet. Nobody's really in that position this early. And we did have kind of another question about it. Christopher Crosby said, what would you guys set the over-under for 2024 recruits by the time the season starts? So let's go September 3rd.
Mm-hmm. And they're up to what, 4 or 5?
They're 5 now.
5. Right.
So CJ Carr, they have CJ Carr, Cam Williams, Jack Larson, and the 2 defensive linemen, Owen Wafel and Brandon Davis Swain. So they got 5 right now. So
over under, I would say, if I'm setting
over under on total number.
Yeah, including the players that are already committed, right?
Correct. So just total number in the class. So like if 5.5 means they add, and you think they're going to add
one more,
that kind of thing, right? Yeah.
I'll say 7.5 is the over under. Say 7.5.
Yeah, I think they're kind of close to being done on 24 for now. By the time the season starts,
so you would take the under.
I'd take the under. Yeah, I'd say maybe they add 1 or 2, maybe, but I think right now they're kind of, you know, we'll have to see. I think they want to try to really finish July strong with the guys that are in the 23 class.
That's fair.
I think right now, and they got the guys they really wanted and needed. Like Brandon Davis Swain wasn't necessarily a guy they were anticipating getting that early, right? Like you just took him because he wanted to come that early, and you were going to take him. You know, it's not like they pushed him into the class. Same with CJ Carr, same with Jack Larson and Cam Williams. These aren't guys that Notre Dame pushed into the class. These are guys that just wanted to be here. And then once CJ committed, those dominoes started to fall. So that's going to be the interesting thing is if all of a sudden some receivers start wanting to jump on board, that could get things a little bit interesting, fellas.
For sure.
We got some more questions down here. Guys, got a lot of questions. Here's an interesting one. John A1 says, which 11 players are you playing on defense based on pure athletic ability? So now let's answer this question this way. It has to be at the position they play.
Correct.
Just like the 11 best athletes.
I can't put Tyler Buckner as a rover.
Yeah, it's like 3 linebackers. You know, my nose guard is Jalen Sneed. No, guys at their position.
Now you're talking.
At the 11. So Ryan, I'll let you go ahead and take first shot at this one.
Sure. So Cam Hart at corner. I'll start with corner. I'm going to start secondary and move my way up. So Cam Hart at corner.
Yes.
I'm going to say, I'll say Barnes at the other corner. Safeties, Ramon Henderson and Xavier Watts. Is he a better athlete than Joseph, you think? Watts?
Yeah, probably.
All right, then I'll go Watts.
But I think
that's the first big move for me right there. Well, let's do this all together because I would go Watts and Joseph as my safeties. The other 2 I would agree with. So
it's just all of a pure athletic ability, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
but here's my
I
question.
think there has to be some
still-
football involved.
I still don't know what
Yeah.
Ramon's all-around athletic skill set is, other than just being really fast. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
to me, that's like I care more about a safety that's agile, that's loose, that can do all those things, as opposed to guys just fast. And I think Ramon's a little bit more of still a little bit more of an unknown in regards to his all-around athletic ability.
Okay.
But,
I'm good.
so-
I'm good. I'm good with like Vince said, I'm good with going with Brandon Joseph and Xavier Watts. then.
Would we all
I'll
agree
go
that
there.
there's not a wrong answer among those three?
Oh, that's the
Sure.
point of this
Yeah.
conversation, I
Sure.
think, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are your corners, Vince?
Hart and Barnes.
Ryan, you took the same too.
Hart and
Yeah.
Barnes.
If
Yeah.
we're just going pure athleticism, I'm going Hart and Bracey. Tariq Bracey's the best athlete Notre Dame has at cornerback.
Oh, I'm playing sub package. He's my nickel.
Yeah, he's your nickel. Okay. Cheater.
That was a cheater. That was such a cheating remark.
And my next corner, but he did it so gracefully.
I know.
Like, oh, of course. I mean, of course he's there. He's my
Makes
nickel.
sense,
though.
right? Makes sense.
That was
talking
so well
about?
done.
That was
So beautifully done, Ryan.
I'm going
So if in my nickel package, my other corner is going to be one of the freshmen. It's going to be Mickey. It's just pure athleticism. It's going to be Mickey or Morrison. If we're going, I love Ryan Barnes as a player, but I think Ryan's it's about instincts. It's about length. It's about those type of things as opposed to just pure athleticism. I would argue that the freshmen are the two best athletes at corner behind Hart.
It's such a hard conversation, though, to like take the football talent out of it. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, but instincts and that stuff should factor into
Sure.
athleticism.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, you can
sure.
you can take it that way. Like that's what happens with football talent. But I'm trying to honor John's question of pure athletic ability, right? And that's what I'm trying to get at. So like linebacker.
Well, this is
I mean-
this is where I'm having a little trouble though. Ready?
Yeah.
Because this is a legitimate question.
Mhm.
Can I put Jalen Sneed in at will? That's my question. He's playing Rover right now. Can I put him at will?
Sure.
Okay. Well, that's
Sure.
easier for me then. Marist, Jalen Sneed. I'm putting Marist at Mike because, like, okay, cool. Marist at Mike, Jalen Sneed at will, and I'm putting what's his name at Rover? His name just escaped me.
Tariq Bracey.
Patello.
So you have two Rovers? What?
Two Rovers.
You can only play 11 at a time, brother.
No. You said
Sub
I could use
packages.
Jalen. You said I could use Jalen Sneed. No,
But
I'm saying
you
if,
just
when, I,
listed-
when I go sub, then
Yeah.
Bracey comes in for.
This is 11 players.
Patello.
So
Yes.
11. You have to pick
Well,
a package.
Then Bracey's not on the field right now, so I'm playing with a Rover and Batelho's on there. So
Yeah. So Ryan has the
I'm
best
just-
athlete
I'm
at
just-
corner on the bench. Okay.
I'm
Good
just
to know.
I'm
Good
just
to
trying
know.
to be prepared, Brian.
Okay.
Just trying to
I
be
gotcha.
prepared.
The reality is Tariq Bracey and Cam Hart are in my opinion, by far the best athletes at corner, like just pure athletes. But so if I'm going to go with a 3 linebacker alignment, Vince, who are you going with? If we're going to go with a 3 linebacker alignment, who are you going with?
I'm going with Marist at will. I'm going with Junior at middle, and I'm going with Batelho at Rover.
So you're sticking to guys at the positions they're
Yes.
at now.
I'm.
Okay.
I have a really hard time with
There's
this
all
question,
types of different ways.
but
we can
yeah,
go
that's-
with it.
that's the
I mean,
way
you
I'm
can-
doing
You guys
it,
can
yes.
look at it however you want. That's part of the fun of these,
Sure,
right?
Sure.
So you keep guys in their positions,
Yeah,
and then pick the. Okay, that's fair. And you said Jalen Sneed at Rover.
I said Batelho at Rover.
Patel at Rover. Yeah, Jalen Sneed's a better athlete than Jordan Patel.
You're
in my
probably
opinion.
right about that.
For that position.
You're probably
For
right.
that position, in my opinion. I'm going Prince Collie. I'm doing a little bit of what Ryan did. I'm going if we're just pure athleticism. I mean, here's an interesting thing. I don't know if Jalen Sneed's the most athletic freshman linebacker right now. Everything I've heard about Nolan Ziegler is he is insanely athletic, like even more, like way more athletic than the Notre Dame coaching staff thought he was going to be. He doesn't run with the linebackers. He runs with the DBs in sprints because he just kills the linebacker. He just smokes the linebackers. So I'm going with Jalen or Nolan Ziegler at Rover, one of those two. I'm going to cheat a little bit like Ryan did. So depending on who I want to get, I'm going to move Prince Collie over to Mike and go with Marist at will. I think that's my most athletic group because instead of putting Marist and Mike, I don't love Marist and Mike. I think I would limit him a little bit on just how rangy he could be because you got to keep him in the box a little bit more. So if I can move guys around, I'm going to put Marist at will, keep Marist at will, and I'm going to put Prince Collie at Mike if we're just talking pure athleticism. So, but I'm tempted to put one of the freshmen inside too, right? But I'm going to go with a Rover. I'm going to go the 4-2-5 with a Rover there. Okay, here's okay, can we all know who the Viper is, right? I mean, I think we all
Botelho?
agree that you can't have him at 4 different positions, Ryan. You got to pick a position, man.
Well, now I'm in sub, so
You-
it's off the field now. I'm just kidding.
Hey, Vince, can you see what he's drinking over there?
Oh,
I
my
want to make sure. Ryan, can you hand Vince your cup?
It's an unmarked cup.
Lemonade.
It's an unmarked cup.
Okay.
Strawberry lemonade, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Got a little bit of sting to it today. I'm not really sure
That's
what's
not-
going on.
I don't drink on the job. I don't know what you're
Okay,
talking
good.
about.
Jordan Patello's the starting free safety, Rover, Mike, and Viper.
Just kidding.
Who's your defensive line?
Well, obviously, Foskey is gonna be my Viper. That's a no-brainer, right? I still think Jason is a kid I'm gonna put in the middle at nose. Oh man, the 3 technique is gonna be the hard one for me as far as just athlete is concerned. Because I'm gonna put Aaronsberger out at the big end. And you know what? I think I'm gonna move Justin inside. I'll let him be athletic in the middle. I'll have the twins in the middle.
Wow.
Vince is definitely in a sub package at this point.
Yes,
in time.
he is.
Why not, baby? Why not? You said athletic. I'm going athletic.
Yeah. You're gonna give up 300 rushing yards a game, a bunch of 250-pound nose tackles, and okay.
I got Junior. I got
Okay.
Junior back there.
you
He'll
go.
clean it all up
right,
for me.
all
Don't
right,
worry.
all right.
I'm cheating again a little bit.
Okay.
I also want Aaronsberger as my strong side end. I want Foskey as my Viper. I'm moving Riley Mills inside at nose,
Mill. I
actually,
forgot
because
Riley
I want to
Mills.
keep Jason Adamalola at 3 tech.
Forgot Riley Mills.
I like your inside, Ryan. I would have Jason Adamiola and Riley inside.
Yep.
I'm gonna have some fun with this though. Now that I'm gonna go with Isaiah Foskey's gonna be my big end.
Ooh.
And if we're talking pure athleticism, there's not a better athlete on the defensive line, in my opinion, than Josh Burnham. And the next guy after him would be Aiden Gobira. So one of those two. If we're working with the assumption that Jordan Patello is a rover, if Jordan Patello is a defensive lineman, then in all seriousness, he's the Viper, and I'm putting Foskey at big end, right?
Sure.
If we're gonna really get down to this kind of thing. So
So you did
yes.
like my Patello at end.
I didn't like the fact that you put him in like 5 different positions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't play 5 positions.
He's going to be a corner in the red zone. Too.
So it's like Ryan gives his list. It's like Jordan Patello and 6 other guys. I go, well, where's the other? Well, Jordan Patello's playing all those. That's
I have high hopes for the Swiss Army knife that is Jordan Patello.
Okay.
I hope you're right.
This is one, Shane, these are ones I really wish people would put these on the message board because they just take so much thought of it. Who are some of the recruits you regret Notre Dame not getting over the years? I mean, to me, with our age, it begins and ends with Randy Moss. I mean, that's really where it boils down to. But man, I've heard so many stories about how
technically got Randy though, right? I mean,
but they didn't get him. He never actually showed up on campus, right?
Sure.
But
Sure.
Notre Dame ran out of scholarships for Javon Curse. Do you guys remember this? You guys ever hear this story?
No.
They had one scholarship left and they needed another offensive lineman. So they took an offensive lineman and didn't take Javon Curse.
That's good.
Jonathan Ogden was really close to picking Notre Dame and then ultimately flipped, went to UCLA. I mean, so there's some great ones from back in the day. When you think about those, like recent history,
Karlaftis.
That's one.
Allen Iverson.
Yeah. No, hey, look.
Can you imagine Iverson and Randy Moss on the same team?
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
That would have been a lot.
The question would have been
triple option.
Like I think the only question with Bubba Chuck would have been where he plays. Is he running the option as a quarterback because he was a freaky option quarterback?
Phenomenal.
Is he playing corner?
Yeah,
he's a great corner.
Yeah.
Great corner.
Or do you put him as like the flanker opposite Randy Moss at the X? Right? You know what I mean? Because back then the X was the current W. Do you put him at split end and Randy and Bubba Chuck's the flanker, or you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different things you could do with it.
Sure.
So that would have made that made that real interesting.
That would have been fun. That's a good problem to have. That's what you call that.
Yeah,
another one for me, Brian, just on our conversations is, I know you said that the staff did not have as high of opinion they probably should have on Clark Phillips, who is now at Utah. And man, the cornerback conversation right now would be so much different if you had Clark Phillips on the other side of Cam Hart right now.
I'm going to give you another one. imagine if Notre Dame actually would have landed Ronald Darby like they
True.
should have.
True.
That would have been a lot of fun. Imagine if they would have kept their 2017 corner class together of Paulson Adebo and Elijah Hicks and then Thomas Graham.
Mhm.
And if your depth chart in 2018 when Julian Love goes down against Clemson in the playoff game, if you're throwing Paulson Adebo in there or Thomas Graham in there, as opposed to an injured Dante Vaughn,
Yeah. My number one, because I know that they didn't really recruit him, was Luke Kuechly, and it'll always be Luke Kuechly because he is my favorite player probably of all time.
And he would have come to them. I mean, he would have definitely come to
in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Could you imagine Luke Kuechly and Manti playing side by side for 3 to 4 years? That'd have been so disgustingly good.
Gosh,
so good.
But
there's like a long. I mean, there'd be such a long list, and then then there's guys they got that they didn't keep. Quarterback. Recent history. But yeah, there's a lot of. Did you guys know that Maurice Clarett almost committed to Notre Dame when he was a sophomore, an underclassman?
Did not.
Yeah, he almost committed to Notre Dame when he was a younger player, and then Ohio State ended up winning that one in the end. But yeah, he had some academic issues that resulted in him having to wait a little bit, and by the time he waited, it was Ohio State had scooped him up, and because I think when he was originally going to commit to Notre Dame, Tressel wasn't the coach yet.
Okay.
Because remember, he was a freshman in year 2 under Tressel when they won the title. So this would have been before, I think, the year before Tressel got there, because it was when he was like a sophomore. As I believe when it was going to be the case. So yeah, that would have been really interesting.
How about AJ Dillon? Is another one.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh,
yeah.
Could you imagine? See, here's the thing about AJ Dillon. He was part of the 2017 class.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine him running behind that Notre Dame offensive line? Him and Josh Adams is the 1-2 punch at running back in 17, and then him and Dex are the running back combination in 2018. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. And then Tony Jones, who I love Tony Jones, but Tony Jones averaged almost 6 yards a carry in 2019.
Right.
Against that schedule. Could you imagine what AJ Dillon would have done with that?
Exactly.
And then you got Chase Claypool on the outside, Cole Kmet in the slot, and then AJ Dillon running down the field, or running up the middle. Oh my gosh. And all because Autry Denson told him he wasn't a running back.
He's a linebacker, right?
Yeah. After he smoked every running back. I mean, I watched this with my own eyes, guys. Vince, I actually think, were you there? You were there for that. You weren't doing the Gatorade stuff for the Irish invasion in 2017?
Oh, I was there. Yeah, I was there.
And he smoked, including CJ Holmes, who they wanted, and Deion Jackson, who was a good running back.
I went to Duke.
Yeah. He smoked every one of those dudes in the 40 in the 50-yard sprint, because they would race from like midfield to the end zone and then back. Smoked them all, like this big old thick calves and legs. And Autry Denson telling him, "You're more of a linebacker." Mike Denbrock was so pissed about that.
It's only because he didn't want his record to be broken. That's all.
Yeah.
AJ Dillon ran like 4.51 at the combine at like 240 plus pounds. My God,
unbelievable. It's just so stupid. And that's the thing that bothers me is there's so many of those type of unforced errors. Or just like, why would you do that? Like, why would you say that? Like not thinking George Karlaftis is good enough to play for you. Like, did you see who you guys took in those classes? Like, you couldn't have had him be your third end if just silliness.
Then he goes in the first round.
Yes, absolute silliness. Just so ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Let's get down to some more here. Sean Kane, because of the COVID year, does Zeke Correll have 3 years of eligibility remaining? If you include 2022, yes. So technically, Zeke will have 6 years. Because basically, every kid who was on the roster before 2020 that took a red shirt, you add another red shirt. So basically, Zeke was on the team in 19. That was his red shirt season. 20 doesn't count. So when you get to 2021 this past year, technically, Zeke Correll was a redshirt freshman this past year, eligibility-wise. I know he played multiple games in 2020, but it doesn't count.
It's just a completely lost year.
That's the reason Kurt Hinish came back. Kurt Hinish literally played at least like 9 or 10 games in 4 years. That's how I have to look at the COVID year. Literally counted for no one. You just can choose to either take advantage of it or not. It counted for no one. So Zeke Correll, and that's the crazy thing is Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner have Tyler Buckner has fewer seasons of eligibility remaining than Drew Pine. Think about that. So it's a little nuts, to be honest with you. So, yes, he does have – and so does Andrew Kristofic as well.
Right.
Because he's in that class. All right. Chris Crosby says, what would you guys set the over-under for 2024? Oh, we already did that one. Excuse me. My apologies. Here we go. Here's a good one. Ryan, we'll start with you here on this one. Andrew Goss says, what are the expectations of a Harry Hiestand offensive line? Will they be up to the H8 standards by OSU? What areas can improve the most? What player do you think improves the most over the offseason? So let's go one at a time, and we'll go Ryan, you first, then Vince.
Okay.
So what are the big picture? And to me, the first one is the two together. What are the expectations of a Harry Hiestand offensive line, and will they end up to that standard by the opener?
I mean, they're going to be better, right? Like, I mean, it's impossible that they're worse. They'll take a huge step forward. I think you're definitely going to see more of the long-term dividends by the end of the season, where I would say it's up to the Harry Hiestand standard at that point, right? But I think that it's definitely going to be improved from last season. I'd be very surprised if they weren't a better team in game one than they were at any point last season. I don't think that that's too much of a stretch.
That's not a stretch at all. Are you kidding me? Like, that's exactly what I anticipate happening. I don't look. They need to work on across the board. They need to work on everything. I mean, that from where they were last year to where they're going to be this year, they got to work on everything. And it starts with fundamentals and it goes from there. But I think the expectation is they're going to be a top 5 offensive line in the country. And I think that they're going to be markedly better by Ohio State. No question about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I got it. I think for me, appreciate it. You guys were quick to both of them like. I think for me, I expect will they be up to Harry Hiestand standards by Ohio State? In some areas, they better be, and because of Harry Hiestand's expectations, and what I mean by that, it's more of how you play. It's the toughness, the physicality, the finishing, like that stuff should be there by game one.
Absolutely.
Where I'm on board with also with what Ryan says is I don't expect this team to have maximized their technical precision by game one. That's true for a lot of teams. In my opinion, there are a lot of teams that I think you could look at and say, hey, veteran teams, the 2017 offensive line, they made some technical mistakes in the Georgia game because it's early in the year. That's going to happen. But the big thing for me is I just need to see them step up and to be a physical team. That's the key. That's the standard that needs to be met the most for me. And I think that kind of guys goes into the second part. What areas can they improve the most? I think, do we all agree that the physicality is the biggest one just because
absolutely.
So we can agree on that. So Ryan, my next question would be is what are the technical areas that you need to see this line improve upon to where you say, okay, now they're playing like a Harry Hiestand offensive line?
I mean, I think you mentioned it already, right? It's like playing through the whistle and it's playing through the man. I think when you're talking about, especially like combo blocks, like you have to displace, right? Like that's displacement power. So I think it's just running feet on contact, playing through the whistle, playing through your man, and being more aggressive as far as resetting the line of scrimmage. Like I think that's the biggest thing for me is to more proactiveness and physicality in that department.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Vince?
It's reestablishing the line of scrimmage. It's not catching. It's taking the fight to the defense. Like we didn't see that at all. You know what I mean? And so there's an aggressive piece to that, but and then it's a footwork issue. It's all of the things that Ryan just said. But from a watching it on TV standpoint, they have to move the line from the original line of scrimmage in their favor. That just did not happen before, and that needs to change.
I think that another thing is they were really bad when it came to timing on combo blocks to the point where they almost hardly ever got up to the second level. Like Jared Patterson is about the only guy that I remember getting up to the second level, like worth anything last year.
They had no feel for it at all.
No. I think that's another thing that you should be able to see early on because that's something that there's nothing that Harry Hiestand – the two things Harry Hiestand practices more than anything are drive and combos. I mean, you just watch – Vince, you've been in a million practices with Harry Hiestand as a coach. It's drive, minimum 10 yards, I think it's 10, or is it 20? I think it's 10, right? Minimum 10.
For away ways, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's they work a ton on combos and pass game combos, run game combos, double teams where you're just driving. What I mean run game combos is like, handling twists in the run game, twists and stunts, and then there's just a pure just drive, get off, drive, get off. They work on that stuff a ton.
Every single practice.
Yeah. And then what player do you guys think improves the most over the offseason? Ryan, again, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go with Zeke Correll on this one. I think that it's not as – I mean, it definitely has a lot to do with Harry Easton. I don't want to phrase this incorrectly. I think it's just getting back to the natural center position, which is going to be huge for him, to be honest with you. And then I also think it's coupled that with the fact that you're going to have Harry Easton as your coach. So if he's able to grab that center spot full time and is indeed the starter moving forward, I expect a big, big jump from Zeke Corral this year.
That's a really good one. I'm going to say Josh Lugg because I think people have forgotten about Josh Lugg and how good of an interior player that he can be because he was playing out of position at tackle last year, and it showed. And you add in the tutelage of Harry Easton and Chris Watt, and then you add in the fact that he's going to a position that he's more naturally suited for. I think fans are going to be like, oh, I forgot Josh Lugg was actually a really good player. And so I think he improves in the eyes of fans an awful lot playing guard.
I'm going to go Blake Fisher. The reason I say that is because he played so little, right? I mean, he was still a freshman that only, game and a half. He's going to go from that to, I think, it wouldn't shock me. I don't want to put this on him too early because, Jared Patterson's there, Josh Lugg, like you guys saw, Joe Alt's a pretty good player, but it wouldn't. So I'm not saying this is, I'm just going to say I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of the year, Blake Fisher's their best lineman. Which you couldn't say. He played a game and a half last year, right? I mean, now, if he would have played all year, my answer would be different. My answer would probably be Zeke Corral. It's probably my runner-up might be Josh Lugg, but I think Josh has room for improvement, but I think Josh is a little bit more he's more experienced. I don't know if Josh is going to get a lot better from a dominant standpoint. I think with Josh, it's more about just play consistently, right? When Josh and Ryan, you and I have talked about this. I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but we've talked about this. When Josh Lugg was playing within himself last year, he was a pretty good player, especially in the run game. He's a pretty solid player. Mm-hmm. He had technical issues that got him in trouble, like that ridiculously pass set that they were teaching last year, which was like the dumbest thing I've ever seen of. Like, get your 6'7", 305-pound offensive lineman on his heels. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they were trying to teach a straight vertical pass set, but didn't know how to teach it. But they didn't know how to teach it. It was the weirdest thing I ever saw in my life. Like, it was so dumb. But those are just kind of technical. He's not going to become he's not going to look like Quentin Nelson all of a sudden. But he was solid last year for dumb penalties and then he'd have to get. But he was a solid player. Zeke Corral was awful last year, and I think Zeke's going to be good. I think Zeke's going to have a good year. So to me, the reason I say Zeke is because he's coming from the furthest back.
True.
If Andrew Kristofic wins a starting job and he's a good player, okay, he was a pretty solid player last year. That's not a huge improvement. Sure. Joe Alt is steady and doesn't give up any sacks. Okay, yeah, sure. That's what he did as a freshman, right? To me, Blake is from just lack of playing time, and then Zeke he was pretty rough last year. I think he's going to make a big jump and be a really good player.
What would your opinion change at all if I'm not going to, obviously this isn't a guarantee, but if I could guarantee that Joel goes from steady good to all-American level, then would your conversation completely change there?
I wouldn't call that a huge improvement, though.
You don't think so?
I would just say that's sort of a natural progression of a guy that was really good. I mean, if we go back and study Joe's film last year, he was really good.
Yeah.
And he was really good. So I don't know if all-American would be necessarily a giant leap. And here's why, because he was already pretty good. It's a big leap for a kid to go from 6-game starter to All-American. Sure. But what I'm saying is Zeke was bad. And that's so Ryan. So that's where I'm kind of, if Zeke is just a good player, that's way better than what he was last year. And I think he will be. I think Zeke, there's a lot of reasons I think Zeke struggled last year. And some people have written him off, and I get all that. But I really think if he can stay healthy, and this is a big if, I really think Zeke Corral could be a really good football player.
I do too. I love Zeke. He's one of my favorite players, to be honest with you. Yeah. I just didn't want to, since our buddy here grabbed him first, I didn't want to go down that road. But
I mean, look, there's no reason you can't pick the same guy.
I love Zeke. I absolutely love him, and I think that again, he got kind of not a raw deal because I like the fact that they gave him an opportunity at guard. I just don't think he was supported enough, to be honest. I don't think he got the support to play that position at a high level. And then you add into just I think there was some mental, lapses and things of that nature. And it just compiled and compiled and compiled. And at that point, it was like, okay, it's need to make a change. And thank they did, but I think he's going to be a fantastic center. Somebody asked a question, I think it was yesterday in the chat, who's going to take over for center after Patterson? I'm like,
it's already happening. Yeah.
Zeke's going to be here for 3 more years. Like, time.
Yeah. Yep. There's no doubt. Let's go to, so we did improves. What areas? Yeah, we got all those. So we can get to those. Here's another one. This is an interesting one. Jacob Kraft. After this weekend's commitments, who will be the most important target remaining on the board? So let's assume, for the sake of Jacob's question, that they get Micah Bell tonight, for argument's sake, Rico Flores on Sunday, and then Christian Gray on Monday. At that point in time, who is the most important remaining recruit on the board? This is, I'm going to let you guys go first because you're probably not going to like my answer.
I'm not going to say Dante Moore at this point, just because I'm just going to take it off the table for now because it's just where everything's trending. I'm going to say the most important recruit that's left on the board for me is Jaden Greathouse, in my opinion, because there's 2 wide receivers in this hypothetical where you're going to get Rico Flores, you're going to get a Braylon James that's already in the class. I am very high on Jaden Greathouse. I think he can come in and he can play a lot early. So he slightly. I don't even know what the word I'm trying to say is. He slightly edges out. There we go. I'm losing my mind. Slightly edges out Jason Moore in this conversation. He would have been my number 2 though.
That's where I was going to go. I was going to go Jason Moore. I think he's a game changer at defense, on the defensive line. And I love what he brings. I love his film. I think he is huge on the defensive line. That's who I was going to go with if we're not talking about the other Moore.
He said most important, not favorite. So I'm not going to say Jaden Alsbury. To me, defensively, I think it's Jason Moore. I do. Defensively, I think it's Jason Moore simply because, football's still a trench game. It is. That's why Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley have 0 national titles. It's still a game that's won and lost in the trenches. And to me, he makes this defensive line class elite. Truly, like I think it's kind of already elite. Would anybody want to disagree with that? With Keon Key, it's already elite. He makes it generational, is what I'm trying to say. And then you add in last year's haul, and all of a sudden it's like, well, over a 2-year span, I don't know if I'd trade that group with anybody, and it fits in so well together. Offensively, I'm still going Dante Moore. Ryan, I completely understand where you're coming from, but for me, you had this all-in strategy, which you should have had. If you're going to be all in, you need to be all in and see it through. And you kind of have to start looking at other quarterbacks, but I would personally still recruit Dante Moore. And the reason I say that is because he still moves the needle for you. Sure. Big time as a player. And I still feel like, and I know that he's allowed others around him to kind of allow his recruitment to go in a way that has hurt his reputation in some ways, that has allowed a narrative about him. And Ryan, I think you went off on this a little bit the other day, that's allowed a narrative about him as a person to be created that we don't think reflects truly who Dante is. And then ultimately that's up to him. But he's still a kid who's back-to-back 4.0 semester kid, who brags about that. I think he's a really thoughtful kid. He's still the same kid that we thought he was before. It's just his recruitment hasn't played out that way. I still feel like he is that guy. Because then all of a sudden, now you're saying, okay, like let's just say hypothetically in 2 weeks, Dante Moore just woke up and was like, man, this is where my heart's always been. I still want to be there. I'm going to commit to Notre Dame. And all of a sudden, we're putting Richard Young back on the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about, well, no one's going to flip so-and-so now. We're talking about like, okay, now you've got CJ Carr and Dante Moore. Hey, Micah Hudson, what's good, buddy? Hey, Ryan Wingo, what the deal is, you know what I mean? Like, let's get this thing going. And I think that's the really important thing. And if you want to try to flip a Cardinal Tate during the season or a Tyler Williams or whatever else, you're going to have it's going to be hard to do, but you're going to have a better shot at it if you have Dante and CJ together. That's what I say. CJ's a great player. Love CJ Carr. Absolutely. Dante Moore's a great player. Love Dante Moore. Yep. I'd rather have both of them. This isn't the NFL where you draft your one guy and that's just what you roll with. What if CJ gets hurt? What if he doesn't pan out? What if he just needs more time? Who knows? What if Dante's your guy and you don't get CJ and Dante gets hurt or he doesn't pan out and you need CJ? The argument's for both of them. That's why I say get them both. Get them both. And, if CJ's the kid that we think he is, he sits 2 years and then he takes over for 2 to 3 years and he's a first-round pick. So that's just kind of where I'm at, guys, I still feel like it's him. I think there's a very important. I mean, Ronan Hannafin's important. I thought about him. I thought about Jaden Greathouse on offense, but it still, to me, boils down to the quarterback. It's still that guy. So that's where I'm at. Got a super chat here from Craig Sebring. With the shortage of running backs, thank you, Craig. With the shortage of running backs, do you bring someone that played running back in high school from the defense to the offense, or go transfer portal? Vince, you want to start off with this one?
I don't make any moves right now. I make 0 moves. I'm not bringing anybody over. The way this offense is going to run, I think that you spread the ball around anyway. It's not like this is pick a year and pick a power run game. Like, that's not what Notre Dame is going to be doing. And I think that you can be smart about the pitch count of carries that these guys are going to have in training camp. And you just make sure that you're going to get a 4th running back eventually, whether it's the middle of September, beginning of October, whatever the case may be. But Logan Diggs is coming back. So then you're going to have 4, which you're fine with. I mean, that you're good to go at 4. So I don't think you move anybody, because then you've moved him for what? Now you got to move him back. Like, I think you tread water with where you're at. Now, if you get another season-ending injury, now I think you start to bring in these conversations. But until then, 3 healthy scholarship backs, you're fine for what they need to get through.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I have so many mixed feelings on it. I think for me, one, I mean, who would that defensive player even be, right? Like, didn't Aceto Ekwonu play running back at some point during his career? Like, who would? Sure. I just don't know who the running back guy would be on the roster from the defensive perspective. I would always be open to the transfer portal personally. Like, I would rather not move someone on my roster that I didn't really love the move, right? Like, if it's just moving because of need, I don't like doing that. So I'd be open to the transfer portal. I think I'm kind of with Vince for now, though. I think I would kind of just stay where I'm at and just see how the chips fall a little bit. But I think I would always use the transfer portal. And if there's a player that makes sense and he's a good fit, and I think I would always entertain those things. But I would really rather not move a guy on the roster if I don't have to.
Well, and aren't scholarship numbers an issue?
That's where I'm at, Vince.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be nice to go to the portal, but you don't have the ability to do that right now.
Right.
Like, and here's the thing you have to understand is, I think there's going to be a scholarship opened up here soon. But the problem is you need 2. You need 2 to open up. And I'm not saying that specifically. I'm saying that's how it always happens. There's somebody's going to go on medical, something. I mean, that it always happens. Some walk on is, some that always happens. It's not like, I saw the reaction. That's not what I'm saying. That always happens. Like, there's somebody goes on medical, something happens right before. That's exactly what he did. Oh,
there's a post on the message board now.
Already.
Brian, who's
Driscoll said, and they're just like pick a name. Driscoll said, yeah. There's no supplemental draft, so yeah. I mean, that's not it. That just always happens, right? I mean, that's the point.
You can bring in a transfer and they can actually play. Is there a date, a drop dead date, or is like
basically it's like it's you.
I didn't know if
there's a time, and I think it's like I can't remember what it is. If in D3 it was like by the beginning of your first week, you had to have your roster submitted.
Okay,
you had to submit your full roster by whatever. So if a kid joined, but the point is you'd want to have somebody. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it before the football season starts. But right now the portal's not really an option. I mean, Notre Dame's looked at the portal for receivers and other positions, but they just don't have the room right now.
Right.
And so that's not really an option. And I'm not moving someone for a short-term thing. Look, 3 running backs is enough to get you through half the season.
No doubt.
And then Jadarian Price comes, Logan Diggs comes back. Now if you lose another guy, you're in trouble. But to me, it's an easier transition to move an Avery Davis back there, who has played running back at Notre Dame. I mean, that's people forget. Like, somebody was pointing out, like, whoa, he only had 10 catches for 70-something yards in 2019. I'm like, yeah, he was a running back.
Right.
He had running back numbers as a pass catcher,
It worries me stealing him from the wide receiving core, though.
Right. But I'd rather steal him from the receiving core because you're going to play him, right? This is if you have another injury. Vince. That's where I'm coming from. Is like if you lose Estime or Tyree,
Sure.
and you just got the only other one in Jabron Payne, who's a freshman who hasn't played football in 2 years. You can't just stand pat and say, "Oh, we're fine." Right? I mean, you have to move somebody. And to me, it's an easier transition to move a guy there because the problem is you're not going to move a Asida Iguanu and play him a running back if you want to beat anyone. Now you're taking away his chance to maybe compete somewhere else. I mean, if there's a guy that's never played running, that's not going to play, then maybe think about it. But like, to me, who's going to help you win a game more? Avery Davis, a running back, or Asida Iguanu, a running back?
Or how about a Chase Ketterer or somebody like that who actually?
Yeah, but again, I don't know if you're going to give the ball to Chase Ketterer, that means you're not giving it to Avery Davis as a pass catcher. I mean, when I say move him to run, you're going to play him, right? And now your offense is going to change. You're going to do more power reads, right, as opposed to read zone. Power read meaning, with Tyler Buckner, where you're running an outside zone and your quarterback. So read zone essentially is like an inside run where you either hand off on the inside run or the quarterback pulls and gets outside. A power read is essentially you're blocking power O inside and you're running a sweep action with the running back. So if the quarterback pulls, and it's now a play side read more so than a backside read. So if the quarterback pulls, he is the one running vertically in between the tackles. And the running back is the one. And if he gives, the running back's on a jet sweep. So, I mean, there's things you can do with Braden Lindsey in that role.
Right.
I mean, there's things you can do with Avery Davis in that role.
I would rather do stuff, as opposed to make them actual running back.
But he'd still have to be you have to rep that. You have to practice that. I'm not saying you're going to put Avery Davis a running back and run him, 25 times between the tackles. But you have to have somebody there, right? And so to me, it's easier to cross-train a receiver. I mean, heck, Lorenzo Styles was the short yardage running back for his high school team.
Well, here's what I'll say. Cross-training is different than moving him to a new position.
But that's what you're doing. I'm not saying I'm moving him but I'm moving him to running back. That's what I'm explaining what I would do. I'm moving him to running back.
So cross-training is
as a running back. But I am moving him to running back. It's a cross-train for me because as a running back, I can still put him in the slot. As a running back, he can still do all the things that he did as a slot, right? And Absolutely. So I can use him in those roles, but he's still a running back. He's got to learn how to pass pro. He's got to learn how to do all those kind of things because you can't go into a game with one running back. And we don't know what Jabron Payne is going to be. It's just that right now, I don't think we need to do that if you're Notre Dame because they do have 3 running backs and the fourth is going to come back at some point.
Right, exactly.
I would need another injury to happen.
Season-ending injury.
Or a long term. I mean, you can't go 5 games between the time when Logan Diggs is going to come back and if you lose a guy for 2 months, you're going to go 5-6 games and you're going to have to play Ohio State and BYU in North Carolina with 1 or 2 running backs. And your second running back is Jabron Payne. Again, this is assuming that the next injury is to one of the 2 vets, not Jabron Payne.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So if I lose Jabron Payne, that's a bummer. But I've got between Tyler Buckner's running ability with the jet sweeps, the reverses, all that stuff, I got enough of a package to go win the first 4 or 5 games. It's more of if I just got one of the veteran, and I say veteran Aldrich Estime, one of the returning backs, and I lose Payne, then I'm not changing anything. If I lose one of them and I got Payne, then I feel like you have to change something. We haven't seen Jabron Payne look like the guy he was for 2 years. I think he's going to be okay, but we have to see it first. Sure. I just don't know if he's there right now. All right. John A1 asked the question earlier. I'm going to bring this back up because we didn't get to the second part. Offense. We never got to offense.
Oh, my gosh.
So I think this one should be a little bit easier, don't you think?
Let's go.
I mean, does anyone want to go different at quarterback than Buckner?
Are we putting Aldrich Estime on the line? Are we moving?
No.
Vince, come on.
You're going to stay true to your philosophy.
Grow up.
It's almost as dumb as putting Jones Patel at 4 different positions.
Grow up, Vince.
Is anyone going to see anything other than Chris Tyree at running back?
No, I'm not.
We're all going to have Lorenzo Styles as one of the receivers, right?
Yep.
And is anyone going to say anything other than Michael Mayer at tight end?
No.
Okay, so we at least have some of them down. So let's go with the rest. Who are your other 2 wide receivers? Well, are you going 11 personnel or 12?
Actually, wait. Should we put Eli Raritan? He's a rare 147.
That's true. He would have had the third fastest 10-yard split of anyone at the combine last year.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing that. So, are you guys going 11 personnel or 12? Which one?
I'm going 11 personnel.
Vince?
11.
Okay, so Ryan, you've got Buckner, Tyree, Mayer, Styles. Yep. Who are your other two right receivers?
My other two wide receivers would be Deion Colsey and Tobias Merriweather.
Okay, Vince.
Merriweather and Lindsey.
Okay, I can dig that. I think both are good answers. Offensive line, left or right, Ryan?
I'd rather. Oh man, that's where it gets a little.
Okay, let's
tough,
do this.
it?
Let's be true to how offensive line is, and we don't play freshmen.
Sure.
Because honestly, otherwise, I
Sure.
got Billy Schrouth and Emil Wagner in my starting lineup, and we're just talking pure
Sure.
athleticism. And I don't think that's really a smart thing to do.
Yes.
So let's take them out and say returners.
Okay, so I would go. Man, I would really like to get Tosh Baker on the field somehow.
You can.
I know
Easton likes to move guys around. Go for it.
I'm gonna go.
See,
That's cheating. Fine, I'll do it.
No.
I'm cheating. Nope, I'm cheating. Joe Alt. I'm gonna go with Andrew Kristofic, Jared Patterson, Blake Fisher, and Tosh Baker.
Okay. So Alt and Tosh at tackle,
Yes.
and then
Fisher
Blake,
in a guard.
Fisher and Kristofic at guard. Okay, and then Jared
Patterson
at center. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to do the exact same thing with Fisher, cheater. But I am I'm going to keep Patterson at guard, and I will put Zeke at center.
I think the only change that I would make from the current, just what the rotation is going to be anyway, which is Alt. What we expect is Alt, Patterson, Carell, Lugg, Fisher. That's what we all expect, right?
Yep.
Yes,
I think my only change I would either put Kristofic or Michael Carmody in at right guard.
for Lugg.
One of those two for Lugg. If we're just talking pure athleticism.
No, right.
Carmody's an interesting one.
He's pretty athletic player, yeah. It'd be one of those two, Kristofic or Carmody. I mean, so I think they're actually going to have, of the non-freshmen, some of their better athletes on the field. I think Kristofic's the only guy that I view as a pretty good athlete that I don't think that may not be in the starting lineup this year, of the returners. And then Carmody won't be, but he's still a bit of a young guy. So yeah. Let's go next.
Wait, should we do specialists or no?
No, we're not going to.
Moving on. Okay.
We're definitely moving on.
No, Blake.
Yep. Definitely moving on. Okay, Alex Toby. I don't think we got to this one yet. Happy Friday. Do you think having two super conferences will create a more NFL style NFC AFC playoff going forward? Yes, and I think that's the goal, which pisses me off because you already have an NFL.
Right. Why do you need another?
Right. Because the people that run ESPN in these places are idiots, in my opinion, and they think, well, it works here, so let's do it here, and they're just going to try to replicate that. I think it's going to work. It's going to work early on, but it's going to create major problems because they don't have the. It's like these are the same people that thought that from an NCAA standpoint, but also from a media standpoint, that thought the transfer portal was going to work and all these other stupid things that always fail. Football thrives because football is a great sport. The NFL isn't anywhere close to maximizing its potential because I think the guy running it is an idiot. I mean, when it comes to getting the most out of his product, making as big of a fan base welcoming as big of a fan base as possible and doing things that make the game better. I think football thrives in spite of its leadership, and that's what's happening in college football now too. But I think some of these big money moves, I mean, ESPN is hemorrhaging users and subscribers and all these kind of things. I don't know that their business model is going to exist in 10 years, but they've got these big payouts, promises. There's so many unknowns to this that I think makes this interesting. And is this
fascinating? I don't have to like it, but it is fascinating.
And this could end up blowing up in their face in 5 to 10 years, because sometimes you can promise money that you think that, well, if we do this deal, we may pay out money we don't have now, but it's going to pay off because we're going to do this, and this. And those things don't pan out and you still have those debts and, now you're screwed. So I think that's kind of where it's going. But they're basically trying to make, and you hear it all the time from media people. Well, it works in the NFL. Let's do it. This isn't the freaking NFL. Right. And so, it's going to be, and those some of the things I want to talk about when we dive into this topic a little bit more, to be honest with you. Jay Clampin Investments with a big super chat. Jay, thank you very, 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 very much. Sup, boys? Thoughts on an IB Vegas meetup? Also with the looming commits, not mentioning a certain QB. What's a realistic finish ranking for the 2025 class, 23 class, pending we get Jason Moore? IB meetup. There will be some sort of IB meetup. Vince and I are going to probably get out there early. I'll definitely get out there early. We're going to try to do a podcast or two from the Blue Wire Pod studio.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm out.
What's a realistic finishing ranking? I feel like there's this notion, Ryan, that like, oh, Notre Dame's going to struggle to stay in the top 5 now. And to me, it's nothing but BK PTSD, man. Like, right now I look at where I project their numbers to be.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just what the recruits we think they're going to get. So this doesn't include Samuel Mpemba, doesn't include Dante Moore, just the guys we think they're going to, and it didn't include Micah Tees. And it would get them either 2nd, 3rd, or 4th every year going back to like 2015 is when I stopped. They'd be no lower than 4th any of those years. In some years, they'd be 2nd. And in one year, they'd have been 1st. I think 2016, they'd have been 1st. Their points total would have been 1st. So I don't, and that doesn't include the potential that, maybe some guys will rise up the rankings. Some guys are going to fall. What if some guys rise up? So I just don't get this whole thing. Ryan, would you say it's anything other than what we said the other day? Right now, if I had to put my money down, they're going to have a top 3 class, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that was going to be my answer, was top 3, because I also think I think this mindset is, I'm not saying for Jay specifically, but I think that there's a mindset that like if they don't get Dante Moore, they're not going to get a quarterback at all, and I don't think that that's necessarily a thing either. Like there's still a possibility that they can get another pretty highly ranked quarterback in the class, and like you said, I mean, it's your projection still includes that. We feel pretty good about where Jason Moore is with Notre Dame, right? We still feel good about Jaden Osbury and, a couple of the recruits that are recruiting over the next couple of days. So Jaden Greathouse in the future, potentially. I mean, there's a lot of players that are still on the board that we think are extremely realistic. And maybe not getting Dante Moore does not mean that there's not going to be a quarterback in this class. They still have an opportunity to flip someone or get someone that is still on the board. So I think top 3 is very likely personally.
We also have to keep in mind that if the Notre Dame offense is what we think it's going to be, that's going to play a big role. If it's not, then maybe it'd be harder to get that quarterback, especially flipping a guy. But if Notre Dame goes out this year and the offense is what we think it's going to be, that's going to make it even easier, and so to flip somebody that you want. So I'm not, they'll get like you said, Ryan, they're going to get a quarterback. We don't know who it's going to be and when. And if they don't get a 23 quarterback, it's because down the road, CJ Carr decides to reclassify. And if he reclassifies, now you have a top 100 quarterback, right? I mean, and depending on how his junior season goes, it would make him a 5-star quarterback. So they're either going to add someone in the 23 class or CJ is going to reclassify. Right now, I think it's going to be more the 23 quarterback. Would you agree with that, Ryan, based on the intel 100%. That you have and that I have? Yep. If that changes down the road and because CJ may come out and have like a big jump as junior year, be like, you know what, man, like I'm ready. I'm like, I'm ready to go. They don't have a quarterback in 23. I'm ready to go. And then you still have a big time quarterback in your 23 class because CJ would then reclassify and they would move him into the 23 class. Mm-hmm. And so, they're going to have a quarterback in the 23 class, in my opinion. They may not have a 5-star top 10 player in the country quarterback, which I don't think right now they're going to, but they're still going to have a guy that's a pretty good football player that's going to help with the rankings. All right, next question. And Jay, again, thanks for the super chat very, very much. Boom. Jarrett Grace, former Notre Dame linebacker, my man, who's currently, I believe, in medical school. So you talk about the opportunities that Notre Dame presents.
He is. He's in town.
Jarrett says, happy Friday, IB Nation. How do you guys see recruiting battles changing now between Notre Dame and the current Pac-12 teams? Not yet jumping ship, i.e. Oregon. Washington could definitely give players pause. Let's just say Dennis Dodd, who, again, you take what Dennis Dodd says with a grain of salt, but let's assume for argument's sake, because he's also the guy that said Notre Dame wanted Luke Fickell as the head football coach of Notre Dame. We all know how much I love Dennis Dodd. Let's just assume for a second he's not totally talking out of his you-know-what again, and that the Big Ten has given pause to Oregon and Washington for now, which is what he's reporting, that they've told Oregon and Washington, we're not ready to move on you yet. And I think a lot of this is about trying to convince Notre Dame to come. And then there's other teams. It's not just them. They would rather add Duke and North Carolina than Oregon and Washington, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not just about Notre Dame. They would much rather have Kansas than Seattle and Washington. I mean, than Washington and Oregon, because of what it would do for basketball. That's actually a decent sized market. That area, because you've got the Kansas City area and all that, all that kind of stuff. So Kansas is actually a one of the better markets in the Big 12. Take the football team out of it; they're really good in other sports, but it's the TV market's the one that matters. That's a lot more important than the Eugene, Oregon market at this point in time. So anyway, that's one that they would like to get into. The Carolinas is obviously you want to get into that Charlotte, Raleigh, area, that market, which is a growing market. It's not
Tobacco
huge now,
Road.
but it's an ascending market. And then of course it adds prestige to your basketball aspect of your thing, which is more prestige as opposed to the financial.
Right.
So let's just say hypothetically he's correct. Ryan, what does that do when it comes to Notre Dame being able to recruit against those teams in head-to-head battles?
I mean, if they are staying packed like this assumption is, right, and they're not joining one of these major conferences, these super conferences, then I think that you get a major advantage over, the schools in that region, obviously. But Jared, I just find it hard to believe that Oregon especially is going to be a team that is just left on the outside looking in. I just think they're going to be a part of one of the major conferences if that's how it trends personally. So I think it's an interesting point, but I think it's going to end up being a moot point when it's all said and done personally.
There's a comment when you're talking about some of the stuff in the Big Ten leaving, and Archer says Penn State won the Big Ten in 2016 has frequently won 10-plus games prior to 2020. I don't see them leaving. The mistake you're making, Archer, is you keep thinking this has anything to do with football.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do. Penn State's had an undefeated season since they joined the Big Ten, correct? Didn't they go undefeated in like 02? Actually, it's like 94, right? Where they ended up not winning the title, but they went undefeated. I'm pretty sure that happened when they were in the Big Ten because I think it was the year that they had that big comeback against Illinois. Sean and I were talking about this recently.
Yeah,
I believe
I think they had a really nice 12-1 season.
It was when
with
Kerry
Michael
Collins
Robinson.
was there. No, it's 94.
Yeah.
They went 12-0 in 1994 as part of the Big Ten. They went 11-2 in 96, 10-3. They had an 11-1 season in 05. That was the year that they beat Ohio State with Michael Robinson at quarterback, Ryan. That's the one you're referring to. It was 05. Yep. They were really good that year, and won the Orange Bowl that year. You said that was the year that they lost to Michigan last second. I think Mario Manningham caught like a little slant route, if I remember correctly. I mean, so even the game they lost that year was a really close game.
That defense was sick, man. They had like Paul Plazluzny and Dan Connor, and
and wasn't Sean Lee part of that linebacking core as well?
He may have been. Yeah.
But they had Tom Bahali, a defensive end. I mean, they were
a couple years later. They had Navarro Bowman as well.
That defense was sick.
Yeah,
and they harassed Troy Smith big time. But see, here's the thing: it has nothing to do with that. The reality is, Penn State has lost a lot of its prestige as a national program, and as a sort of because they were an independent for a long time. They could go play Miami. They didn't play a tough schedule, but they'd pick and choose. They'd play Notre Dame a decent amount. But even in the years they've had the best maybe team on the field, they were never the biggest team in the conference. They were never even in the top 3 as far as marquee programs in the conference, especially once they went and got Nebraska and early on with Nebraska. So it's not about football. That's the thing. It's not about football. Do you really think that they're bringing UCLA in on to because the football team is going to add any value whatsoever to the Big Ten? No. Do you think it's because they want to add value to the basketball program? No. They want to dominate the LA TV market. That's the reality of it. And it's about branding and prestige. And the reality is Penn State breaking away from the Big Ten, if it was something that would allow them to kind of maybe reestablish themselves as a dominant program. This is what I've always said. I think Penn State would be better off, in my opinion. Again, let's just say I was inherited Elon Musk's finance, fortune, right?
Oh, you don't have that?
No, I don't.
Oh.
Maybe when he was 12, I had what he had when he was 12. But let's just say I had that, which means I could kind of do whatever the heck I wanted, right? He's like $200 billion or something.
Be great. I'd be asking for a raise.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would have already hired Brady Quinn to replace you.
Had to add a little levity there.
I like your analysis better than Brady Quinn, personally, Vince.
Brady Quinn doesn't whine about getting raises. Actually, he would.
Because he's making a lot more money than I
am. In all seriousness, if I was able to kind of go start my own conference and I wanted it to be centered around Notre Dame, like the 3 prizes for me would be Notre Dame, Penn State, Miami. because I would want to start some sort of East Coast league. It would have like, that kind of thing. And I think those programs would bring in, I would pretty much try to raid the ACC. I would bring in Miami, Virginia Tech, Louisville, Pitt, BC, Miami, kind of do something like that. That's what I would go towards. And I would have, that maybe even do something where, like we had talked before about, like, if I was really going to rate it and I would have moved before the SEC and the Big Ten. I would have gotten Texas, Oklahoma, USC, UCLA to form sort of like our Western part of that new conference, right? Where there's a couple crossover games, but for the most part, those teams are playing out there. The East Coast would have been Notre Dame, Miami, Florida State, those type of things. I would do something like that if I had the money to do so. And I think Penn State would jump at that chance because they're never going to be considered a pure blood Big Ten team. They're not. They never have been. And it doesn't matter what they do on the field. And that's the thing. They've had great teams since they joined in 92, 93, right? What was it? 93 was their first year. I mean, like I said, their second year in the Big Ten, they went 12-0, won the Rose Bowl, beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl. They still weren't on the level as Michigan and Ohio State as far as the prestige of that conference. So it really isn't about that. It's about money. If another conference offered them a chance to match the money the Big Ten makes, but then allow them to build their brand back up, I think they jump at the chance. It's just not. That's not. We can talk about what we would do if we had Elon Musk's money, but that's not out there right now. That's not a reality. That's not happening, sadly. It's a bummer, but that's the reality of where we are right now. Here we go. I love this. This isn't even a real question. He's just being pithy, and I love it. Sean Kane says, why is there a media frenzy around Notre Dame every time other schools switch conferences? I thought they said Notre Dame was irrelevant.
Because they're different, man.
They have no leverage. They have no leverage.
He's being sarcastic because he knows.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Right.
The thing is like, what you have to understand is Notre Dame's irrelevant stuff is them being pissed because Notre Dame's not in their TV market. So you got to try to tear Notre Dame down to make them easier to go buy. That's what it's all about. But that's why they all want Notre Dame, because they know the brand that Notre Dame wields, and it's just all.
I think there's an argument to be made that USC is going to drop Penn State another rung on the Big Ten.
There's no
ladder,
question,
right?
There's no question.
So Penn State's not getting any favors by this.
No. Another question. I really liked this question. So God Country Notre Dame barbecue and coffee keeps adding new things.
I was going to say the coffee wasn't
Yeah.
on there before. Dropped
Yeah.
a couple rungs on my respect ladder, but that's okay.
Yeah, we've actually fallen off. IB used to be on there, so we've fallen off. We got replaced by coffee.
Coffee.
With the Notre Dame and Ohio State matchup looking so good with Marcus Freeman, how many times would you say Notre Dame plays Ohio State in the next 10 years, including the two scheduled? I think the postseason, the over-under is 4.5.
Whoa,
so what he's basically
postseason.
saying here is if Notre Dame's the program we think they're going to be, and Ohio State's not slowing down, we could kind of like what we've seen with Clemson and Ohio. I mean, Clemson and Ohio State have played each other 4 times in the last 10 years.
Right.
And they've all been in the postseason, once in the Orange Bowl and then 3 times in the playoff, right? That's where I think he's getting at. I like that over-under. I'm trying to think about that one. I'd probably go under.
You're guaranteed the 2, right?
Yeah, right. So I'd still
probably
say
go under
2 more times is what I would say. I
Yeah.
think 2 more times potentially in the next 10 years. I'd go under, but I think the 4.5 is good.
Taking the over.
Basically, it's 3 postseason matchups,
Yes.
which again doesn't always have to be.
And it could be in the same
playoff.
season that they play, by the way, too. I mean, they could rematch.
Potentially, it would have to be in the playoff, then.
Right? No, absolutely.
But we just saw again. When does that 4.5 start? Because if we're gonna retroactively, then you have to include the 15 game. By the end of 2023, they will have played 3 times. Then you kind of move on, and then 2005 is no longer in that 10-year window, right?
Right. If you're going back to 15, then you've only got until 25 to do it.
The point is, Vince, is that they don't have to. They have to play twice. But the point is, they've played in the postseason before. In the Fiesta Bowl, they played in the Fiesta Bowl 10 years before that. So it's not even just a playoff that they'd have to play in. And especially now with here's what I'm talking about. What's the Rose Bowl's reaction going to be to all this? And you just killed the rivalry between the Big Ten and the Pac-12. So does the Big Ten Pac-12 rivalry go away? So does that open up the Rose Bowl, meaning the Rose Bowl champ isn't tied in there, which means opens up more opportunities for potentially Notre Dame, Ohio State matchups in the postseason?
I mean, USC is going to be the Big Ten version of the.
Could you
Rose
imagine
Bowl
that
against
USC
like Oregon
against
or something?
Oregon in the Rose Bowl? That'd be so lame. That'd be so lame. That would suck so bad.
That's
Like,
great.
oh, we're back to West Coast teams playing each other that no one cares about. Wonderful.
Exactly. Nobody would watch that game. Like, that would be like,
Yeah.
okay, we're good.
Yeah. Here's another question from God Country Notre Dame Barbecue and Coffee. I'm going to answer this one, and you guys tell me if you agree or disagree. On a scale of 1 to 10, how disappointed do you think Ryan Day is that BK isn't Notre Dame's coach anymore? He was probably licking his chops this time last year with big game BK. I'm going to say on a scale of 1 to 10, how disappointed is he that Brian Kelly's not there? I'm going to say 1. Because here's the deal. Ryan Day is a competitor. And competitors don't want walkover games. And dominating a crap Notre Dame team that nobody respects doesn't do his team any good. What helps them become a team with a great playoff resume is you wouldn't beat a really good Notre Dame team that people respect. And when you have, like, the thing that has hurt Ohio State too is that there is no kind of league rival that can be on their level. I mean, they have it's like Michigan fans are acting like they did something good. They finally beat Ohio State like once in a decade, right? And they're acting like they've done something. Penn State's giving them a game, but they don't beat them very often. You know, I mean, it's like their losses in like Iowa and Purdue have, combined for more wins over Ohio State than Michigan and Michigan State had the last 5 years. You know what I mean? So, or the same, I think. So to me, I think Notre Dame being good as a head, if I'm a competitive guy, I want Notre Dame to be good because it makes it easier for me to raise my bar with my coaches. Hey guys, we're not worried about Michigan anymore. We're not worried about Penn State anymore. This Notre Dame thing is rolling. They have kind of helped raise our standard. I really believe that to be true. I think if you're a competitor, you don't want your rivals to stink. You don't want a team to be down. I think you want them to be good because it's better for you when you beat them. Like I don't see what like steamrolling a Michigan team that nobody cares about does for your program. It makes you feel better because you beat a rival. But I think competitors want to beat. It's like I didn't want to beat Clemson without Trevor Lawrence. It kind of took some of the shine off of it. I want to beat you at your best. And if you don't have the mentality, I just don't think you're a competitor. And I don't think the Ryan Day got to where he got to by being a guy that hopes that the good teams lose their best things or aren't as good or are down on his way to a championship. He just doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. I don't see it that way.
Do you think it's a different perspective on the recruiting trail comparative to an on the field fight? You understand what I mean by that?
Yeah. I think there's a little bit more there. Yeah, it's like, they may take some guys from us.
Right.
But I think even then, it's like, I know some people around the program, and I honestly think there was a little bit of staleness with Ohio State, honestly, because it was just kind of getting easy for them. Right. Like, if it came down to them in Michigan, like, Michigan stopped Michigan does very little recruiting in Ohio anymore. I mean, they don't even try against Ohio State, which is, like, totally cowardly. They don't even, like, try against them anymore. Penn State's giving them some battles, but like, I remember talking to somebody at Ohio State one time about 2 years ago, and he said, man, he says, once Harry left, we didn't worry about Notre Dame anymore. Like, they weren't going to beat us for anybody. It didn't matter where we were recruiting them. We were going to beat them. We weren't even worried about them. And like, so that's changed. But I almost feel like there was a sense of like, maybe you kind of need to worry about them a little bit. Maybe that's going to make your staff kind of up their game. And, so maybe that's it. But I think, Ryan, you could say that the disappointment level is a little higher from a recruiting standpoint. Right. But from an on-the-field standpoint, I don't think he's disappointed at all. I think this is because now you have something to motivate your team. It's like, hey, these guys are going to be really good. Especially, let's just say, for some reason, Notre Dame beats Ohio State this year. Mm-hmm. Like, now that's something where now you can say, okay, guys, now we got something. We can't just rely on this. We got to really, like, I think sometimes defeat can, or a lack of the success you think you have can be good for you. And we've talked about this with the Georgia game in 2017. The Georgia game in 2017, which Notre Dame lost, had just as big of an impact for Notre Dame as the win over Stanford in 2012 for a good chunk of the season, in my opinion. And so I just think it depends on having. But I just think competitors, man, like Vince, if you're a baseball coach, did you ever want to go in a game and cross your fingers? Well, maybe you did if your team's not that good or something like that. But did you ever go to a game as a coach, a coordinator, or a head coach and say, boy, I hope their 3 best players don't show up today? I don't know. I mean,
depends on the situation, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
Okay. I mean,
seriously,
does your team suck?
Depends on it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
If we have a pretty good team and we hadn't won a championship in a really long time and one of their kids gets hurt, sorry, we're going to go win that championship. I completely disagree with you on this
That's
one.
a little different to me. An injury is a little different than like a guy transfers. And that's how I view this. But anyway,
Which is a new head coach.
So share your your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's a new head coach. I mean, I would not be upset if our biggest rival changed head coaches. Like, that would not upset me. I'd be like, bye. We'll take advantage of the fact that you're not there anymore, and because we're a rival, and that's your problem, not our problem. We're still going to come play our game.
I think it's the other way around here, though. It's a guy that sucked left, and a guy that's really good is arriving.
But that's only if he viewed Brian Kelly as sucking, which I don't know that that's the case.
The premise of the question, though, is he was probably licking his chops this time last year with Big Game BK, meaning like he didn't respect BK. And now
that's like an ask and answer thing. Like, that's what's happening. Okay.
The premise of the question is that now all of a sudden that Notre Dame's a more formidable team now because of Marcus Freeman. That's the premise.
I think he's still disappointed because I don't care what happens. A win over Notre Dame is huge for your program, especially in week 1. And because how does the national media look at Notre Dame? If they lose, that is a great win for whoever beat Notre Dame. But if Notre Dame goes out and wins, it's like a fluke. It was an accident. It was whatever. The national media will take that win from Ohio State, and they will look at that as the biggest win on their schedule, no matter who the coach is, frankly. And Ryan Day will be the guy who beat Notre Dame. So I think he wants to win because he wants to win a national. He doesn't have a national championship. Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
no.
Go get that national title and then worry about other stuff. I don't care how easy the road is. We talked about Notre Dame winning the national title last year because the road got a little bit easier for them because there were other teams that were down. I'd still celebrate pretty hard that national championship if Notre Dame went out and won it last year. I don't think that changes it for me.
Yeah.
Doesn't like it.
Ryan is trying to start stuff today, Vince. He is absolutely trying to start stuff today. I did want to read a question that's not on the board right now. We got someone who couldn't be on this chat sent a PayPal, sent some money to Irish Breakdown through PayPal to get into question asked.
Okay.
And so here's the question: it says, if healthy, who gets more touches this year, Chris Tyree or Audric Estime? So if they're both healthy for the same part of the season, who gets more touches, Chris Tyree or Audric Estime?
Do special teams count?
No.
Chris Tyree for me, because I think that I actually like Estime in the past.
I like he said touches. He didn't say carries. He said
right.
touches.
Oh, and that makes a big difference because touches means receptions and
I actually like Estime, as a receiver. I think he actually has some kind of natural fuel in that passing game when I saw him in person. But I think Tyree is a more designated weapon in the passing game. So if they're both healthy, I think that I think even if Estime has more carries, that Tyree will have more touches, just because I think he'll be more of a emphasis in the passing game.
And we're talking about the entirety of the season too, right? And I don't think Tyree's touches will change when Logan Diggs comes back. I think Estime's go down a little bit. I think they're going to have to split some of those carries. So I will say Tyree on this one.
Yeah, I think it's close. I think it'll be close simply because I think Tyree is going to have a much higher yards per carry average, which, is going to, where it's going to take Estime 12 carries to get to 70 yards. There's going to be games where it takes Tyree 8. You know what I mean? But I think when you throw touches, well, let me ask you this question, guys. If it was just carries, is your answer the same?
It's Estime.
I think mine's Estime as well.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. And is it because you think Estime is going to be the lead back, or because of, like we talked about, Tyree is going to have a higher yards per carry type of thing?
It just depends on what your definition of lead back is. I think he's going to get the most carries. I think Tyree starts the game, and I think I just think that when Estime is in the game, he's just going to get more straight carries than Tyree would. I still think Tyree is going to be the starter.
So let me ask you this. Is this what you guys are saying? That you guys think the offense will be built around Tyree more as an entirety, but Estime will be featured from just a volume standpoint a little bit more in the run game specifically, because you both said that it's Tyree in total touches. So it tells me Tyree's a big part of the offense. It's just you're going to get him the ball in different ways, whereas Estimate's just pure run.
Correct.
For the most part.
That's a great way to explain it. I completely agree with that.
Okay. And to answer your question directly to Vince, Brian, I would say also it's, for me, I think it's a little of both, because I think that Tyree's just style screams less carries, right? Because like you said, it's going to take him less touches to get to a certain number in the run game.
Right.
But I think Estimate. I also just think Estimate is going to be a stud, if we're being completely honest. So,
real quick too, Vince. I don't know if you're in the basement. I don't know if you have a window outside. I do.
Not.
It's getting really ugly. So
is it really?
Yes, and we're on sort of a similar power grid. So if Vince and I disappear, Ryan, it's weather related. Just kind of take over or answer question.
I was getting lightning alerts on my phone.
I think we'll be okay, but I'm just kind of throwing that warning with some of the issues we've had here. If I'm out, if I go away suddenly, I'm probably out. Just assume that I'm not.
I'm gonna bring a guest in, John A1, maybe Brandon.
Go for it.
Throw somebody.
Go for it.
Send him a link.
Go
Here
for
we go.
it. Yeah, very, 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 very. Go for it, guys. Let's get to some more questions here. Here's a good one, Ryan. I don't know if you'll have an opinion on this. And again, I'm not sure where you were age wise at this point in time. Vince, I'm curious to get your opinion for sure. So let's go with Vince first, and then Ryan, if you have an opinion on this, please feel free to chime in. Sean Kane says, if George O'Leary was allowed to remain at Notre Dame, do you think he would have been successful, and would his reign have been closer to Holtz, Weiss, or Kelly in terms of success?
So if I'm not mistaken, when all this went down, I was in college. So
he would have basically taken over when Ty took over.
Right, which is like 2002. Okay, yeah. So I was finishing up college at the time. So I was a little, away from the program, doing college stuff. But I was actually pretty happy with the hire when it went down. I thought that he was a good fit when he was brought in. I thought that he was going to do a good job. I would say I'm not going to project that he would have won a national championship. So I can't say he would be like Holtz, right? He completely different personality wise than Charlie Weiss, but from a wins-loss standpoint, he could have been in the neighborhood of Charlie Weiss for sure. I think he understood Notre Dame. I think it was a good fit. I like what he was bringing to the table. So I think he would have had success. I don't know that he has national championship success because we just haven't seen it in so long, but I was happy with the hire at the time.
I know that the George O'Leary that I remember, and I was just looking it up, and he was at Georgia Tech before that. Correct. I remember the UCF version, and I thought O'Leary was a good coach. I'd say, to Vince's point, though, I don't know if I would project quite that high. I would probably say closer to a Brian Kelly type of success if we're talking about a win-loss record.
I think he would have been in between Brian Kelly and the best of Bob Davie. So like those teams that were like 9-3 for Davie, and some of the really good Kelly teams. Like I think George O'Leary would have been consistently 9-3 and had some 10-2s. And then every 5 or 6 years you'd have a 2012 season mixed in. Like that's how I look. I don't think George O'Leary would have gone on the run that we saw the last 5 years back then. And because he was a good hire, and the success he had at Georgia Tech, if you think, it was pretty decent, but it wasn't great. He had that one. He had had Joe Hamilton, had a really good team with Joe Hamilton, but they were when he took over, they were like 5 years removed from being a co-national champion. So it's not like they were some bum program that had no history. Right. He was a good coach. I think his style would have fit better at Notre Dame. I think he would have been better at Notre Dame than he was at Georgia Tech.
Yeah,
because here was his record at Georgia Tech: 6-5, 5-6, 7-5, 10-2, 8-4, 9-3, 7-5. Right, that's good, but I think his style, his personality, his name was O'Leary. I think he would have recruited. He would have had better players. Notre Dame as an institution would have fit what he liked to do better. I think he would have been like a 9-3, occasionally 8-4, occasionally 10-2, and then every 5 or 6 years that team that's 12-0 and
kind of overachieves,
BCS game and then loses.
Yeah, right.
More often than not. Now they wouldn't have gotten dominated the way some of those other teams did, but he wouldn't have recruited the way Charlie did. Like here would have been great is if Charlie could have recruited a team for George O'Leary. Like if Charlie was George O'Leary's offensive coordinator and recruiting coordinator, and O'Leary was still the head coach, that'd have been some really good freaking teams right there, man. Because I don't think he would have recruited the dynamic players that Charlie did, but he was such a better coach than Charlie was because they'd have been fundamentally sound. They'd have been tough and all that.
Right.
And he definitely would have been better than Ty. And,
He did a tremendous job at UCF, man. He was,
Yeah.
weren't they winless his first year or something like that? Like they were a bad team.
0-11.
Were they not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They went 0-11, and then next year went 8-5, 4-8, 10-4, 4-8, 8-5, 11-3, 5-7. And then his last 3 years, it was really weird. They went 10-4, 12-1, 9-4, and then went 0-8 the next year, and he got fired.
Yeah.
It's like he came off of a 3-year stretch where he went 10-4, 12-1, 9-4, and then they fired him the first down year. It was like
that was with Blake Bortles. That was the era of Blake Bortles. Yep.
Yeah. So it's very, very strange. 2013 was the Bortles year, right? The year they went 12-1 and then won the Fiesta Bowl. So 2 years after he led Central freaking Florida to a Fiesta Bowl victory, he got fired. Beat Baylor by 10. And he got fired. Like these schools are so stupid. Like I really just, whatever. It's ridiculous. Let's get to the next question here. We kind of address this a little bit. Give you guys a chance to respond to this. I already gave my piece on it, but John Wayne's Winchester, which by the way, flipping great name, by the way. John Wayne's Winchester, with all the discussion around conference realignment and whatnot, what impact would Notre Dame winning the dang thing this year have on the state of college football, if any?
Be huge. They would have all the power. I mean, not all the power.
All the
they would have a lot of power.
Well, hold on. Let me ask. Let me make sure. How does it impact? Does that mean it impacts Notre Dame, or does that impact college football?
Notre Dame. It allows them to stay independent for as long as they need to be. I mean,
none of us think it impacts college football much, other than it's more. It's a much greater opportunity that Notre Dame stays independent, but it doesn't slow down the mega conferences at all, right?
I don't think it affects college football that much. I just think it gives Notre Dame even more leverage to remain independent if they want to choose to stay independent. Like it's just more power. It's like a power move, in my opinion.
It just gives them. It gives them more leverage in all of these, debates and all of these negotiations and all of that. And again, the college football playoff isn't preventing Notre Dame from entering the college football playoff if they just won a national championship. They're not going to do that. So it gives them leverage.
Agree. There we go. Rob Thidoff, Brian, Vince, and Ryan. I would not trust any of these three if they told me the time, but who do you trust the most?
Oh, I thought you were talking about us.
Dang,
man, that's rough.
That's how I've read it too, because I usually I don't go to the end. I just start reading it. I was like, dang. Like, Rob, I thought we were cool, man. Like, you've been on this chat. Like, you're one of the OGs on this chat, man. Like, what do we do, buddy? Wow. Brian, Vince, and Ryan, period. Now he's on to a separate thought. He's prefacing the question with a thought. I don't trust any of these three if they told me at the time, but who would you trust the most? Urban Meyer, Jim Harbaugh, or Brian Kelly?
Jim Harbaugh, probably.
Agreed.
I don't know.
Yeah,
because like it's
not
all
bright enough to tell you a lie. I don't.
It's not out in the open. Like everybody knew he was interviewing for jobs.
Right.
But
that's
Urban
the thing.
Meyer's
Part of the thing that hurt him is he was honest.
Right.
He told recruits, "I'm if I get this job, I want to go to the NFL." I mean, he was honest about it. Right. I don't view Jim Harbaugh as a liar. No. I just don't think he's done a good job. And I think there's something. I'm not saying this is honestly not a shot at Michigan or being flippant, I truly believe there's something wrong there. Like, I don't know if it's CTE. I'm not joking. I'm not trying to be flippant here. I'm not trying to take a crack at Michigan. Like, I look at him now and look at him when he was at Stanford. That's not the same guy. Like, in every way, like he'll get these like really distant off in space looks, and you're just like,
it just doesn't look
where he is right now.
It just doesn't look like all the Pistons are firing. That's
right, and I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. No. I'm genuinely, there's a concern level there. I'm really not saying that to be snarky, or I wouldn't joke about that no matter how much I dislike someone as a flippant joke. I'm being serious. I do think there's something there that's just not the same guy, and some of the stuff he does is like really weird. And I don't remember that being something we heard about when he was with Stanford.
Like spending the night with a kicker?
Yeah. And I don't know. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope that's not the case. But it's just a concern I have.
Can we all agree that Urban Meyer is the least trustworthy?
Oh,
person on
God,
that
yes.
list, by a
yes.
landslide.
Absolutely.
Like it's not even close.
I would let Brian Kelly babysit Vince's kids before I would and I would never do that with Urban Meyer.
100%.
Because I'd at least trust Kelly to go hire someone responsible to come watch the
I know
kid
exactly
while
who he would
involved.
hire too, so that,
Right.
that would work out pretty well.
Right.
But,
So there's. I mean,
my kids are resilient. I need a night out.
Yeah.
So
it's Harbaugh. It's Harbaugh, then Kelly, and then. I mean, Meyer's not even on the list.
No,
There's literally, if he told me what time it was, and I looked at my watch, I'd think maybe he did something to my watch. Like that's how much I trust Urban Meyer. That guy's oh boy. I'll answer this one quickly. David Lowe has asked this, I think, a couple times this week. I said, "What's the latest with Dante?" Look, as of right now, a lot of the news is that he's going to Oregon. That's what everybody says. Deep down, I have a little skepticism about that because, like, Dante's held everything so close to the vest for so long, and now he's just telling everyone that he's going to Oregon. It just doesn't add up to me.
Right.
I do know that Notre Dame is still recruiting him, but right now it just doesn't look like that's going to be the move. They haven't given up on it, and like I said, I'll have a lot more to say on this after a decision is made, but right now it's not trending in Notre Dame's direction, in my opinion. But I also don't think it's a done deal. Like 3-4 days ago, all the intel I was getting is it was a done deal. But something, and it may be, but there's just something like this just doesn't add up for me, Ryan, with how all this is like. This kid never let anything out, and now all of a sudden everybody knows where he's going.
Right.
It just, I don't know, man.
It doesn't track. I get that.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem. Well, but I could be wrong. Could be wrong. Let's see here. Joe Southern, give me independence or give me death. Joe, I am with you. Archer 452. Brady Quinn talked with Josh Pate yesterday and seemed generally positive about Notre Dame joining the Big Ten. I know that is not the vibe here. Who does Brady Quinn work for? Fox Sports, correct?
And CBS.
Who is Fox Sports? Who is Fox Sports' biggest? What's their biggest brand right now?
The Big Ten.
Okay,
I like this game. Keep going.
Kish Square.
I like this game.
Yeah. Kish Square. Notre Dame would be risking a lot to join the ACC and assume that none of these big schools jump ship anyway. Kish, I would agree with you if they just blindly jumped in. I mean, if they just blindly said, "Oh, we're going to jump in the ACC and save it," okay, what do we got to do? That would be dumb. That's not how these business decisions work. The only way that they would sign with the ACC permanently is if there were some guarantees
there's
from
an out
the
clause,
conference.
and there's an out clause that if they needed to leave and all that.
And it would be if so-and-so leaves.
Right.
If any teams leave, we are out. And, so Notre Dame would protect itself, but Notre Dame 100%. Would have a pretty good idea in going in that those teams were going to be committed. That would have to be. And again, when we talk about this, that's all part of the negotiation, right? And that's part of the move the ACC has to make is you go to the teams you're concerned about. Go to Georgia Tech, go to Duke, go to North Carolina, go to Florida State, go to Clemson or whoever and say, listen, just give us a year to figure this out, right? And just please, for everything we've been through together, just give us a year. And if we don't have it all figured out in the next year, then we'll understand and we can discuss buyouts. I mean, you have to do something like that, but that would include, hey, here's our pitch. Here's what we're trying to do. We want to get Notre Dame. And if we get Notre Dame, we think that can also mean we can go do this or go do that or whatever. Maybe there's a Penn State buyout or something like that. And they can create a North and a South division, put Penn State, Notre Dame and BC and Pitt, Louisville, all them in the North and, create something. I mean, then, you get a couple pretty big markets there. Maybe that could be the case, but that would be something that Notre Dame would negotiate before jumping in. They would have some guarantees that those teams are going to stay. And then they would, like you said, Vince, you nailed it. They would have out clauses. It'd be absolute requirement to have an out clause. If a team leaves, any team leaves from this conference, we're out. And that's exactly what Notre Dame would do. There's no question about it.
No.
Got a super chat from Michael S. It says, doesn't this Big Ten change put Oregon on the sideline and maybe makes it less attractive for Dante Moore and gets Notre Dame back in play?
Talked about it a little.
As I said, we talked about that a little bit.
And I'll say this, though. I don't think it gets Notre Dame back in play, though. I think everything I said earlier was about whether or not Dante would commit to Oregon. Notre Dame did not get beat by Oregon in this recruitment because
of the
everything stayed the same. Yeah. No, because everything stayed the same. Something changed, and a lot of it we can't get into right now.
Sure, okay.
This wasn't about Notre Dame did everything right, and Dante just likes Oregon more. That's not what happened, and I can't go anywhere beyond that. But that's the thing is, so this Oregon thing would mean that LSU and A&M have a better shot. There's other things going on that Notre Dame would have to. I can't say a lot more, but it's not about that Oregon out recruited Notre Dame and Notre Dame did everything right and he just likes Oregon more. That's not the case. That's not the case. And again, I can't go beyond. Ryan's like, oh, don't do it. He's going to slip. He's going to say, I just see your face. You're like, you're waiting on me to screw up. And
I just like watching that. I like watching you dance that line,
Thanks
baby.
a lot, guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks. All those nice things I said about you to Sean Stiers in our business meeting today at lunch.
Oh, brutal.
I take all of it back. NW Junior Super Chat. Thank you very, very much for that.
Yeah, thanks.
My solution, Notre Dame starts their own conference, 20 teams.
Love
Notre
it.
Dame, Penn State, Clemson, Pitt, Miami, Florida State, Stanford, Cal, Syracuse, Wake Forest, Boston College, UNC, NC State, Duke, a Texas school. I think in this instance, I think Baylor would make a lot of sense because Baylor is considered a pretty good school. Right, academically, aren't they? Don't they have a good reputation? And they are a school that's based on a religious foundation, a Baptist school.
Yeah.
Navy, Arizona State, Louisville, Virginia. Thoughts? I would probably nitpick some of the teams in there, but overall, I'm down with it.
I think you know what? I know you've talked about this before, Brian, but I just think it would take some brass ones for Notre Dame to be like, you know what? We're making our own conference, and then they would who's coming with me, and then they just put it together and they just mic drop all these, the Big Ten and the SEC.
Fantastic.
I would. Oh my gosh, that would be
the Notre Dame League.
That would be awesome. I would love every second of that. That would be great. That would be such a ballsy move.
Yeah,
it would.
Yeah, it would have to include them doing something with a network that currently isn't in the game but wants to get in the game.
Yeah, you're gonna have to have all the pieces together.
Right. It'd have to be like CBS decides, you know what, we want a piece of this pie.
Yes.
And NBC's hopeless. They are so poor. They're just a joke.
Completely agree.
It would have to be CBS kind of saying, you know what? Because didn't CBS lose? Does CBS still have NFL? They still have NFL, don't they? Or is it's Fox and
yeah, they have NFL.
They'd have to say, you know what? We want a piece of this college football pie.
Right.
Because what do they have right now? The Navy Army game,
a
couple AAC games, right? Like they're completely out since they lost the SEC.
Right.
And they were not willing to get into that bidding market. It'd have to be something like CBS kind of does a 180 on whether or not someone wants to be a part of college football. And then Notre Dame can jump and be like, hey, you know what? If you're willing to invest in this, here's
and I want it to all be hush hush. And then just one day they just drop it. Like all these teams are coming with us. Here's our TV contract. Eat it. Like, that would be great.
Right.
And then Marcus Freeman can announce it kind of similarly the way he did the green jerseys, like reading all the mean tweets and they'll be like, hey, why don't we just start our own conference?
Yeah.
Let's go.
that was so great, by the way.
That was awesome.
Hey, Jack, why don't we start our own conference?
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
So when they do that, I'm taking full credit.
Yep. All right, let's get down here. That'd be a lot of fun. That'd be so much fun. All right, we got another one from Mark 1 with another super chat. Thank you very much, Mark. Helmets, they should go back to the tradition, students helping to paint them on Friday. What's your thoughts? They'd have to get rid of the way the helmets shine right now, correct?
Yes, they would. And it's just not the way helmets are built these days, unfortunately. It's just
they don't really do the paint thing anymore.
The technology is one that they don't paint them. They do other stuff to get the color on there. And unfortunately, technology has advanced beyond spray paint. That's unfortunate. Because I love the tradition, frankly. I thought that tradition was so cool. And to see like the gold flecks coming off after a hard hit, like that was awesome. It's just that's not reality anymore.
I think maybe do something like where they polish them or something like that. That might be cool. But it's just, I mean, and that's a cool tradition. But at the same time, you don't force something like that on technology that just is so far behind.
Right.
Yeah. That's just kind of I get what you're saying. But I'm with you, Vince. That was cool. But it's like, okay, it's like saying we're going to keep a grass field. You know?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Here we go. Stoic behavior with a super chat. Thank you very much for that. Talking about running backs, looking back, Brian, what would this offense have been like with Elijah Hood? Do you have any knowledge of why he decommitted from Notre Dame? I don't really remember that one a ton, to be completely honest with you. I don't remember what caused him to back off. I was I'm trying to remember when Elijah Hood was. I'm trying to remember what year it was, but 2014. Yeah, that was kind of like when that whole thing happened. I was still. He was a 2014 kid, which meant his recruitment was happening at 12 and 13. Those are the 2 years I got back into coaching. It was just harder for me to stay locked into the day-to-day of what was going on. So I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't remember exactly what it was that caused that problem. I don't want to guess.
Good running back, though.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of rumors and all that stuff. But I don't want to spread rumors that I heard because I don't know it for a fact, and I never heard it from like good sources, like just message board chatter. But, yeah. And he was a good back. He'd have been there 14, 15, 16, and 17. He'd have been a senior on that 17 team running behind, that 17-0 line.
Pretty darn good offensive line.
Yeah. Yeah. I got some weird questions in here that I think are fun.
I love those. Those are my favorite.
Asks, I put Brian, what is your favorite Taco Bell item? I get a cheesy gordita crunch without the sauce. I don't like the spicy ranch sauce, so I get it without the sauce. But yeah, cheesy gordita crunch is probably my favorite one from there.
I'm the biggest bang. I'm the biggest bang for the buck. So I get those boxes. Those boxes are the best deal that Taco Bell has come out with in a long time.
My wife does those, but are those ones you have to do to get the deal? You have to do it on your phone, your app, or something like that.
They have other combos, but I do the one on my phone because it's only $5.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I went there to try to order it for Ange, and they're like, "It's going to be this." And I was like, "Hold on a second. I thought it was going to be like $5." They're like, "Well, no, you only get the special if you order it on your app."
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Well, cancel that order." And I pulled over because it was like $16, $17 for items that would end up were $5 on the deal. And I was like, I'm going to go ahead and
that's why the deal is such a good deal, because you get a drink, you get a dessert, you get two. I'm all about it.
Right. Ryan,
I don't want to answer this because I'm going to get kicked out of the.
He doesn't eat Taco Bell.
If you don't like Taco Bell, that's fine. I don't care.
I don't like Taco Bell. I'm a little bit of a snob with Mexican food, if we're being honest.
It's all good. Well, but see, here's the thing: isn't your like heritage Southern, like South, like Florida, like South Florida? Isn't your dad from South Florida?
Oh, well, he was born in Florida, but
so he's got a little bit of that spiciness is a little bit part of it. Yeah.
He only lived there for like a few months. So
my wife used to be that way when we first got married. She would not eat Taco Bell because it was. I mean, she grew up in San Diego. I mean, she ate like real Mexican food, like and she was like that for a while, but she eventually, when you live in the Midwest long enough and you realize I'm not really going to get good Mexican food, although that salsa's by our house.
You and I go to
their service sucks, but the food is usually pretty good. Yeah, usually pretty good. But cheesy gordita. I'm not going to kick you out for not liking Taco Bell, right? There's others I might be like, all right, we need to have a talk.
Some people are very uppity about their Taco Bell,
So, I go wherever the deals are and get me a quick meal.
If you were to like say Chick-fil-A sandwiches suck, I might be like, all right, man, come on, I got to think here.
It's bad. That would be a bad take.
I can definitely see why people don't like Taco, and I don't love Taco Bell, and that's the only reason I get the cheesy gordita crunch is because the tacos, just plain tacos, suck now. Like, I don't know the last time I got like a taco where like it didn't fall apart when you try it, and it's like soggy, it just gets gross. The quality of Taco Bell's food has gone way down the last 10 years.
It has, and they took a bunch of the good stuff off the menu too. And if you want a hard shell taco, you can't take it home because by the time you get it home,
they don't have hard shell tacos anymore.
It's a 5-minute drive. It's soggy as all get out. You have to eat it like, okay, you got it. Okay, got it. And then you start to eat it right away.
Yeah. It's gross. It's gross. Yeah, it's got. That's why I said the cheesy gordita crunch. The only thing I get there is the cheesy gordita crunch, and I get the nachos and chips. That's it. That's the only thing. It's like just literally chips and nacho cheese. That's all it is. All right, here we go. We're gonna have to wind down here pretty soon. We did get a super chat from Al Boggs. Thank you for that, Al. AJ Boggs, excuse me, AJ Boggs.
AJ.
Brian, are Notre Dame players aware of how much disrespect and hatred Ohio State has for them? If they are unaware, can you please use your sources to deliver this message to them?
They have an Ohio State graduate as their head coach.
And another Ohio State guy on staff on defense. I don't think hatred is going to be the angle that they take on this.
No, I don't think so either.
I think so. But the disrespect part, the first part of what AJ said, I think is there. I think Notre Dame players, and I have this on pretty good authority. I do think they view themselves as disrespected. I do. I think they view themselves as just not a team that, like, it's like as individual players. There's individual players that like will read the preseason magazines and be like, "What? Why am I not on here?" Or why am I not getting talked about in this draft thing? And why am I not getting this? And why am I not getting that? I think that's there. I think that they do view themselves as disrespected by Ohio State and others. But, at the end of the day, that stuff is cool for summer workouts. But I said this before, fellas, like that's all emotional stuff.
Right.
And as I said a week or two ago, emotion is out the window the first time you get hit in the mouth. It's about your preparation. It's about your execution, your technique. It's about your game plan. It's about your ability to execute that game plan. And the emotion comes out of it, right? I mean, Notre Dame was fired up about Miami in the whole halftime, the pregame speech. But at the end of the day, once the thing became live, it was about the toughness, the physicality, the technique, the execution of the game plan. It was about that. They didn't beat Miami because Lou Holt said, "Save Jimmy Johnson's ass for me." Right? That set off it's not like they were sitting in the locker room like, "Oh, I don't know if we can win this game." And then he says that and they're like, "Oh, yes, we can win this game." No, they already thought they could, and that was the thing that finally sent them out there and fired up. But the emotion part goes down once the ball is kicked off. I'm just telling you, I mean, that's how football is, man. It's like once if you're a middle linebacker, first time that right guard that's 330 pounds hits you in the mouth, it's like, I don't care about the disrespect. I care about what do I need to do to beat this guy on the next play. And that's what it comes down to. And so I think emotion in football is important, but it's the emotion and it's more of a passion for playing and executing and dominating as opposed to the disrespect. Now, some guys are good at turning that disrespect into that kind of passion.
Right.
But I don't think team-wide it's a big thing. Like if you don't have it in you already, Vince, the first time you get hit in the mouth, it's out the window.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
That's the reality of it. It's
Absolutely
gone.
agree with that.
It's gone. Another one here from Domer Grizz. Happy Friday. If we get Braylon James, Jaden Greathouse, Ronan Hannafin, Rico Flores, and Micah Teese to go with Merriweather from 22, what is your two deep at W, X, and Z from that group? I'm going to take Micah Teese out of that one.
Yep.
So, because I don't see them getting him, and I don't think they're going to push for a fifth receiver in that class. I think this is what we talked about the other day, Ryan. If they get teased, great, they'll go to 5, but they're not going to force 5 onto it. I think at that point in time, if you're going to get 5, you're going to try to flip a Tyler Williams, a Cardinal Tate, or something like that. You're not going to take Christian Hamilton. At the end of the day, I think they realize like them taking Christian Hamilton wasn't because they thought they were going to get Micah Teese. It was more of we can use this to help convince Micah Teese, but it was more about where they felt they were with Jaden Greathouse, Ronan Hannafin, and Rico Flores.
Sure.
It was more about that. And he wasn't good enough to be a 5th. He was more if we like him as a 4th in some other areas. So that's that. So Ryan,
Yes.
the question.
Yes.
What is your alignment? Because it's not technically 2 deep. There's only 5 guys. What is your alignment? What's your rotation? Who's your starters and what's your rotation with the 2023 receiver class of Braylon James, Jaden Greathouse, Ronan Hannafin, and Rico Flores with Tobias Merriweather from the 2022 class?
It's so difficult it's really difficult, but I'm going to go Braylon James at W. I'm going to go Tobias Merriweather at X, Jaden Greathouse at Z in the slots. I'm going to go Hannafin also at W behind Braylon James, and Rico Flores is kind of my XZ move guy, right? Like he can play a little bit in the slot and he can also play to the field. I think that's what I would go with.
So you had your W was
James and Hannafin.
Okay.
And then my X was my X was
Tobias.
Merriweather, and then my Z was Greathouse, and then I had Flores kind of splitting between the X and the Z.
Vince, do you have anything different?
I don't have anything to add because I have not studied these guys, so I don't want to put anything out there. You know what I mean?
For me, I would have Tobias at X. I'd have Braylon at W. I'd have Ronan Hannafin at Z. And I'd have Rico and Jaden coming in as a rotation. Reason why is I think Rico, to me, Jaden is the guy that can do the most at all 3 spots. And so he'd be the guy that he'd probably get as much reps as the other 3, except maybe Tobias early on, but it would come in a different form. And I feel like putting him at the W or just the Z would limit my ability to move him more, I think, and maybe a little bit harder. Whereas I would want those other guys. To me, Ronan is a Z and an X early on. Maybe can play some W. I'd consider moving Braylon and Ronan at times a little bit, but that would be mine. It would be Tobias at Z or X, Ronan at Z, and Braylon James at W would be mine. And then, like I said, Rico would be Rico would rotate at both my field spots, and then Jaden would play everywhere. I'd play him everywhere, and he'd get a ton of reps. It just would be a little bit of a different way of getting to those reps. That would be how I would go it. So, but I think the thing is, Ryan, there's a lot of different combos you can come up with.
Right.
And the reality is that they all kind of work. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
that's what it says a lot about this group, because you and I have a very different opinion on Jaden Greathouse, but neither of us think that he's not really good.
Right.
It's just
Right.
the degree to which we think he's really good. Like we may have a difference of opinion on Ronan Hannafin, but we both think he's really good. It's just the degree and where he falls into this group. And I think that's what makes this class potentially so good.
Agree.
Is that like I said, if Rico Flores ends up being your fourth best receiver
Good spot.
in a class, you've got a really good receiving class. Really good. And Ronan will be the low. If he commits Notre Dame, he'll be the lowest ranked, which is kind of hilarious to me.
For now.
Yeah. It's very, very hilarious to me. All right. Let's see here. Got a super chat from Mark. Vegas has great Mexican food. You guys will have to try it. BYU game. Try it at the BYU game. I can let you know. Yeah, I always take recommendations for
I'm
food
open to
for
just about
road
anything
games.
that weekend. Let me tell you.
But have either of you guys been to Vegas before?
My 21st birthday, I went with my dad. That was it.
Okay.
So it's been a little bit.
I don't even remember what I did on my 20th.
It'll be almost exactly 20 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Ryan, how about you? Ever been to Vegas?
Have
No?
not. Nope.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I've been once for my sister's wedding, and it was the weekend that Notre Dame played Army in 2006. I always remember that because I was getting a drink, and was in one of the casinos. I was getting a drink, and I remember watching the game at the bar. So yeah, it was.
You didn't get roofied, did you? End up
No.
on a roof? No.
No.
Okay, good.
No, this is no. Did you guys see that question on the message board?
Yes.
what?
Did you see that?
No. Oh, about the
Hangover movie?
Yeah,
like who'd they
I
be?
did. I haven't seen
And
that
I'm
movie in a really long time.
I would
I've
be-
never
I
seen
would
the
be-
whole thing.
I had
I
no
would be Bradley
response.
Cooper. That's
No,
what I
you would
say.
not. See, that's a fireable offense right there.
And they said I was going to be the guy walking around with the baby attached to him, which I thought was appropriate.
Who played that character?
I don't even know, but it was appropriate.
I don't remember all the.
Was that the
names,
guy
to
from
be
The
honest.
Office, or was it Zach Galifianakis or whatever? His name
No,
is?
Zach Galifianakis was the future brother-in-law of the
Okay.
groom.
So
Yeah.
was Ed Helms the guy that played the dude that had the baby attached? Is that who that was?
No, I don't think so.
Who was the other character? Who's the other? It was Bradley Cooper, Zach Galifianakis, right? Ed Holmes, and then whoever was the guy that was stuck on the roof the whole time.
Yes,
He was the groom, right?
Yeah, he
guy
was the
stuck on
groom.
roof.
Yeah.
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 They lost him on right before his wedding. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I've never seen that
it's a
whole
great
movie.
movie.
To be
It's a
honest
great
with you,
movie.
never seen the
Great
whole
movie.
movie.
You go watch it tonight.
So
Yeah.
Zach Galifianakis had the baby attached. That's what the guys are
Okay.
telling me.
Okay.
Oh, is that
So-
who had the baby?
in the
Oh, you're
chat,
right.
that's what they're
So
saying in
it
the
was
chat.
a random baby, and they didn't know where he came from. You're right.
Yeah.
you're
So
right.
would that be you, Vince?
Apparently, that's
Yeah.
my life, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
God, there's no more babies.
Okay. All right. We had a number one Indy fan. Is that Brian Kelly? I can't tell what's in his avatar. That's so weird looking. Odds we get a triple option offense for the first drive or two of the game. I'd like to try something different, unexpected that goes with our strengths as well.
Yeah,
Make it happen.
it's called an RPO.
Okay.
It's
Make it happen.
handoff, run, or throw. That's a triple option.
No, under center, double wing. Let me see it happen. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Dive back, A-backs. Let's do it.
Yeah. Ryan's just like, see at what point in time I can just get Brian to just lose it. On the show.
Bring
What
Keenan
are
Reynolds back.
what are the topics that I can use to just get Brian to absolutely kirk out right in the middle of the show? He's trying,
Bring-
Vince.
Bring
he's
Ricky
trying.
Dobbs in as an offensive analyst. Let's do it.
Do who?
Ricky Dobbs,
Oh, from Navy. I was like,
Navy. Yeah.
"Oh, I'm like a movie character? No.
Keenan
Yeah.
Reynolds.
I was
Is that
like, what?
better?
If you brought Keenan back, I'd dig that one. Well, did Keenan never beat Notre Dame, right? Ricky
don't know.
Dobbs did. Isn't
Ricky
Ricky
sure
Dobbs?
did.
No.
Ricky did.
Who was the quarterback? The name of the quarterback in 16 that beat him? Was it Worth?
Oh yeah.
it Will Worth?
Yeah. Yeah,
Hold on a
something like
second.
that. He was a bigger guy, right? Wasn't
Yeah.
he bigger than?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me look at that kid's name because he was pretty decent. Yeah, Will Worth was the quarterback.
He
Yeah.
he could actually throw
Yeah.
decently, right? Like he wasn't a bad
Well, remember he had
thrower.
that big fourth down throw to remember the what was that kid? They had a real tall receiver on that team, Jameer Tillman. I liked
They
Jameer
always
Tillman.
had a tall
He was
receiver
really
on that
good.
team.
Um,
Yeah.
and he hit him on, I think it was like a fourth down and hit it right in front of Dante Vaughn. Like you guys remember that on that game-winning drive that they had, that long, I should say, game-consuming drive that they had at the end of that game. He could throw it. Yeah, I mean, you look at his numbers to your point, Ryan. He completed 61.5% of his throws that year.
Yeah, he was a different type of triple option quarterback.
Keenan was 53, 47, and 53.
Yeah.
Will Worth was 61.5. And and he was a good player. I liked that kid. I thought he was a pretty good player. Yeah, he was good. I liked him. Their defense on that team just wasn't that good. But they had a good offense that year. They really did. James Tellison, Brian, do you think that when Notre Dame negotiates the next TV contract, do you think they will want some kind of creative or production control? They kind of already have that. So I know that Notre Dame is able to say if something is said during a thing, Vince, I'm pretty sure on this, you would probably know this too. They can say, I don't want that aired.
Oh,
and they have, I mean,
absolutely.
it was people get mad at NBC for putting the Toledo game on Peacock. That was Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That was Notre Dame that wanted that, not NBC.
Notre Dame wanted a bigger game too, if I'm not mistaken.
They
NBC
did.
was like, you know what?
Toledo was the compromise.
Yes, that is correct.
For that. Yeah. That's what we've been told. I've been told that by several good sources that Notre Dame was the one that wanted that because Swarbrick is really into the whole streaming thing.
Right.
And he wants to see how that can play out. It was very, very, very interesting. So yeah, I mean, look, Notre Dame is going to have a lot of it. If they do stay independent, right, they're going to have a lot of say in that kind of thing. I mean, they are. I mean, they're going to have a lot of say in here's what we want, kickoff times and all this kind of. I mean, they're going to negotiate that into the contract.
Of course.
And the reality is
everything's
they're not
negotiable.
The amount of money someone would have to pay them in a TV deal to kind of lose production control would have to be a lot. I mean, and we've seen that already before. And that's always going to be the hang up with ESPN, right? Is ESPN's not going to allow that to happen. And I think Fox would to a degree. Mark also says that his son just joined Irish Breakdown. So we're very happy to hear that. Ryan, here's a good recruiting. Go ahead.
Would that be Mark 2?
Mark. Well done.
Thank you.
That's what you get in hour 3, folks.
That's right. Those are the jokes.
That's
what we're here for.
Mark 1 and Mark 2.
Yep. Brian, here's a question for you, a recruiting question for you. And I'm going to throw this to you because I know how high you are on both of these players. So Michael Campbell says that Jaden Greathouse is Notre Dame's Jackson Smith-Njigba. Now, let me say this. I want you to look at this not so much from a style of play standpoint because they're very different athletes. One's skinny and taller and one's big. And I mean, I would say right now, Jaden Greathouse is thicker right now than Jackson Smith-Njigba is right now.
For sure. Yeah.
Production-wise, dominance-wise, could you see Jaden Greathouse being that kind of player? And this is kind of like ultimately what kind of player do you think he could be? If Jaden Greathouse is who you think he is, from a production dominant standpoint, could he be that kind of player for Notre Dame?
I mean, if we're comparing production, I mean, Jackson Smith-Njigba just had like 1,600 yards last year, right? Like he had one of the better seasons that we've seen receiving wise over the last few years. I'd say similar, not quite to that degree. I don't think he's ever going to have the volume that Jackson Smith.
What's a different offense?
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah. Different emphasis, different offense, different scheme, for sure. Yeah. I would say, though, I could see him being a high-volume pass catcher. I could see him being a 1,000-yard receiver. And I could see this one similarity from a stylistic perspective, I guess, is that Jackson Smith-Njigba spends a lot of time in the slot, and he could do some things outside. I also think that Jaden Greathouse could be a really good slot. I really do. And it'll look a lot different than how Jackson Smith-Njigba wins, but I think that where he can win, areas of the field can be similar, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Good one. Let me see if we got any more down here before we wrap up. There's a lot of questions that we couldn't get to, but obviously we just get so many good ones nowadays that we just can't get to them all. And we're kind of at that 3-hour mark, and I'm we got stuff to do.
And we have a
So-
second show today too.
We do,
so-
we do, and I'm getting ready to print to go into that one and make. Sorry, I look here real quick. Man, you know what? Like, okay, you're gone. We have Ohio State fans that come in here and they're really cool. Archer's really cool about that, right? Like, I like Archer.
Yeah.
I hope he stays. in chat.
This guy was being needled though. In my
I don't
opinion.
care. I don't care. This is a Notre Dame chat.
I understand that.
I don't care.
He's being needled by guys. They need to take it down.
He won't be needled anymore because he's out of the chat.
Yeah, I was about ready to kick out the Notre Dame person too.
Then go for it.
Vince is the dad of the group, so
yeah, everybody just needs to settle down.
Decision maker here.
So let's see here. All right, let me see if we got any more questions here. All right. And I think that's good for now. So before we get out of here, everybody, listen, we are going to have another show coming up in here in about 2 hours. We're going to go live at 6 p.m. Eastern, and we are going to be covering the decision of Micah Bell. Do you know if he's going to be on CBS? I don't believe he's on CBS. I think he's just going to.
I think he's just dropping it.
Yeah. So it'll be a little bit of a different thing. We'll just kind of get on. We'll talk about his recruitment until the moment he kind of lets it go. And then we'll talk about it, what it means for Notre Dame if they get him, what it means if they don't get him. And we'll go from there and break down his game. If they get him, we'll break down his game and do a normal thing. So we'll do our normal thing. And obviously we like where Notre Dame stands going in. But now we'll find out for sure. So 6 p.m. Eastern for Micah Bell on this channel. This is why, hey, Vince, but this is why you got to be subscribed, right, man? This is why you got to be locked into what we're doing and make sure you hit that subscribe button, because then that lets you know, what time we're doing things and when we go live and all that kind of good stuff. So you're definitely want to check that out. So as we always say, everybody hit that like button. So we got to kick one of you out of here. Let's get Ryan out of here so we can show that, Ryan. We love you, but we got to bring it up, man. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this video. Hey, you know what? Mace K finally bringing it. Here we go.
There
Join
it
the
is.
message board. Hit that. See, we can bring Ryan back now. I feel bad. He looked all sad and lonely down there out of there. Join the IB message board. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Share this podcast. Leave a 5-star review if you are listening via podcast. Visit the IB store for only the best merch. And as always, go Irish. Thanks everybody for joining us. I think we'll see a lot of you here in about 2 hours for the Micah Bell podcast when he makes his decision. So we look forward to it. We're going to go get a little chow in us here real quick. We have to power up. Vince is off for the rest of the day. Ryan and I got to recharge to get ready for 6 o'clock. So thanks everybody. Have a great day. Rest of your day. We'll have a great 2 hours. We'll see you all back here very, very shortly on the Irish Breakdown podcast.